Okay, we're live.
All right, thank you. Good evening. My name is Chantel Wright, and I'm the chair of the DC Public Charter School Board. Thank you for joining us for our final board meeting we will have this month. I would like to welcome my fellow board members and colleagues, including Vice Chair Jim Sandman, Treasurer Carissa Stanley Beatty, Secretary Shakura Adamanfanian, Leah Cruzy, and Dwight Davis. As always, we appreciate the time, attention, and engagement from public charter school leaders, LEA Board of Trustee members, families, staff, and members of the public. Your presence and participation help strengthen the transparency and accountability that are foundational to our work. Let's take a moment to recap what we've covered this month during our board meetings before Dr. Walker Davis shares tonight's agenda in her executive director's remarks. Earlier this month, the board issued notices of concern to 9 schools for exceeding the thresholds outlined in our truancy and attendance policy. This policy helps ensure that schools are actively working to reduce chronic absenteeism and truancy, which are critical indicators of student success. As a former school leader, I understand firsthand the challenges of getting students to school every day and the work that you must do to coordinate with your families. But we must remain committed to our policies and continue to elevate the importance of consistent attendance for every student. As a reminder, we have 20 charter reviews this cycle, which began in March. This month, we reviewed 2 schools, Capitol Village PCS, which opened 5 years ago and will continue operating under conditions. Running a school is no easy task, and we recognize the dedication required to serve students each day. It is a privilege for this board to grant and uphold a school's charter, and we take that responsibility seriously. In contrast, we celebrated a major milestone for Washington Global PCS, a standalone middle school in its 10th year of operation. Educating middle school students, my favorite group, is uniquely challenging, and Washington Global has found a successful formula that's worth lifting up. Lastly, we read into record the decision of 2 schools, one newer and one more established, to close at the end of this school year. I Dream PCS after 5 years and Hope Community PCS after 20 years of serving students both made the incredibly difficult decision to relinquish their charters. These decisions are never easy, but as education leaders, we are entrusted to always prioritize what is best for students and their futures. As we close out this month's work, I want to take a moment to recognize the continued dedication of our school communities. We know this time of year can be both exciting and intense with testing, graduations, and planning for the year ahead. Your work does not go unnoticed. I look forward to this evening's discussions. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Walker Davis.
Thank you, Chair Wright, and good evening, board members and the public. This evening, DCPCSB staff will recommend issuing notices of concern to 6 schools for exceeding the truancy threshold and discuss the improvements another school has made. Last night, we heard from 4 schools that came before the board for the same issue. They shared valuable insights about the real and persistent challenges that many families and students face simply getting to school each day, and the difficult work schools are doing to close learning gaps that often accompany chronic absenteeism. Importantly, they also spoke about what was uncovered when they took a deeper look at their own data. I look forward to continuing that conversation tonight and learning more from the schools before us. I also want to acknowledge that DCPCSB staff has also learned a few things about our processes as we resumed enforcement of this policy. I want to reiterate, as I shared yesterday evening, that we have plans to revise this policy and to bring it in line with DCPCSB and the city's approach to chronic absenteeism, and also commit to greater clarity around the business rules associated with implementing the policy. We'll close tonight's meeting by discussing the performance of 2 newer public charter schools that opened 5 years ago. These schools began their journey as our other 5-year schools at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, shouldering the complex work of school startup while also navigating the immense and unpredictable pressures brought on by public health concerns. Their resilience and continued progress deserve close attention. I'll end by expressing my gratitude to the school leaders who collaborate closely with DCPCSB staff, working through technical business rules, engaging with our policies, and taking the time to fully understand the metrics we use to measure progress. Your diligence and partnership are critical. We each share the responsibility to ensure every student in the District of Columbia has access to quality, equitable education. Thank you for your commitment to that mission. I'll turn it back to you, Chair Wright.
Thank you, Dr. Walker Davis. At the beginning of every board meeting, the DC Public Charter School Board hears public testimony related to items on the agenda and listens to testimonies for topics not related to any agenda items. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak. If you need to make a few additional points, please email your testimony for us to read to public.comment@dcpcsb.org. Public officials who sign up to testify will be allowed to speak for up to 5 minutes. The hand-raising feature has been disabled. As a reminder, all written public comment is available to the public on our website. If you would like to register to provide live testimony or submit a written comment to the board, you can find all testimony, registration, and submission information on our website under the Public Comment tab at dcpcsb.org. You can also submit your comments to public.comment@dcpcsb.org or call our public comment line to leave a voicemail testimony at 202-328-2660 and select option 2. As we move through each speaker, Courtney and Jonah, our Zoom hosts for the evening, will promote each speaker from the attendee pool and unmute individuals speaking. Let's hear from the 7 individuals who signed up to speak this evening. I'd like to invite to testify before the board, Maka Taylor, please excuse me if I'm saying your name wrong, and then also if Aaliyah Easton, Shantae Williams, and Tatiana Best can get ready, we'll also promote you.
Chantel, I just wanted to come in and let you know that only 3 are in attendance as of right now, and I've invited them to the panel.
Okay, so I see that we have Laura Martin Massimini. Please excuse me if I'm jacking up the names. Y'all can help me out. So Laura, if you want to go ahead and start, we can start with you, and you have 2 minutes.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Laura Martin Massimini. I am a Washingtonian and Ward 7 resident. I am testifying this evening on support of Sojourner Truth Public Charter School in Washington, D.C., where I've been a parent since its opening in the fall of 2020, which you referred to during COVID times. I have been a member of Truth's Board of Trustees for the last 5 years, and I currently serve as the board's vice chair. I'm also the lead for the Family Association, which gives me unique insight into the broader experience of parents and other caregivers in the Truth community. When we first chose Truth 6 years ago, my husband and I, we were looking for a school that would educate the whole child, not just focus on academics. We wanted a place where we knew that our sons would not fall through the cracks and that they would be seen and known by adults with whom they could loop and grow with, and with whom we could have close relationships. We knew that academic growth was necessary, particularly in reading, and that a one-size-fits-all approach to support was unlikely to serve us, particularly in reading. We believe that our kids will benefit from a Montessori-aligned curriculum where they are at all times given choices and where they exercise self-regulation and self-management. We were looking for all of those things, and Truth has delivered. My sons have demonstrated growth in reading and math at Truth and far outpaces national averages that may not have occurred in a different setting. I message with their classroom teachers and administrators on a regular basis, and many of these staff members feel like extensions of the family because of the way they have looped with my kids through the years. My kids have been given the opportunity to explore topics that are of personal interest and was able to design their social justice project around the argument for statehood. And my younger son more recently was able to do a timeline project that centered entirely around his own experience. It was called The Timeline of Me. What may be most impressive of all is that when I speak with other parents, I hear the same reoccurring themes. Their kids feel seen and loved. The parents and other caregivers feel connected to the adults in the building, and they are seeing all kinds of growth in their students. I am grateful to have been a part of the Truth community for these last 5 years. It is my hope that the board votes this evening to approve the renewal of Sojourner Truth's charter for an additional 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you for sharing your story. Really appreciate hearing. As a mother of 2 boys, I know it's never easy. So thank you for sharing, and I love the timeline of me. Tell him I can't wait to see how he's going to change the world. Thank you for your testimony.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Jonah, do we have anyone else? I don't see any of our other.
Yes, so I think.
Tatiana.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Tatiana, if you're there and wouldn't mind coming on camera, we'd love to see your face. If you're not comfortable, feel free to just still talk. There you go.
Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
How are you all today? I'm just grateful for this opportunity to come on and share my experience. I am a parent advocate with the social justice school, and I'm like truly honored to be able to come on here in behalf of representing them in the renewal of their charter. I've been a parent for 3 years now, and the love and support and dedication that my family has received from all of the staff at the social justice school has been remarkable. One of the things that I like to highlight the most is the support that my son Teron McNeil receives. He is a student advocate and scholar activist at the social justice school, and they have worked diligently to mold him into the young man that he is today. He now speaks just fluently and in confidence as he goes out to support the school, and then himself advocating for his peers, and displaying his leadership. And one of the greatest things that I love also about the school is that they welcome him and all their other students to be involved solely in their day to day. So that's one of the things that I will always keep in the forefront. Another thing, I had a daughter. Well, I have a daughter, Tanaya McNeil, who's a former student, and I love to always talk about this situation. There was a bullying situation there during our first year, and I just appreciate the love and support that they provided. They made sure that Tanaya was safe and secure. They also addressed other matters. They made sure that they hosted town halls to talk about cyberbullying and the safety of the students, and also held Tanaya accountable, for whatever role she played in it. Even with my son, they communicate effectively with the parents. They always welcome us to engage in, all the activities. And I see how hard they work to, represent their values. One of the things, liberation, my son, he's free in his thinking. He loves the conferences. He loves being able to lead and say what he's learning, and just be able to be a role model and represent the school. And just really, it's really a joy. So I just thank you, and I look forward to seeing the school for another 5 years.
Thank you so much. Can you tell me how to say your
Yes, Titania.
Titania? Now, I would not have known that.
It's okay. I give everybody 50 tries before I get upset.
Well, thank you, Titania, and thank you
Absolutely.
for being such a active parent and involved in what's happening in your school, and obviously with your children. But to be on behalf of the school, we appreciate partnership, and we want more empowered parents. So thank you for your role.
Thank you.
All right, I see we have Nasir Cornish. Nasir, if you wouldn't mind coming on video, if you're not comfortable, we accept your testimony. We'll hear from you. If you're talking to us, you're on mute.
Hello, can you hear me?
We hear you. How are
All right.
you?
I'm good. And my fault, I'm kind of like not in a position to go on camera if you don't mind.
I don't mind, Nasir. Go ahead. Thank you.
All right, so I'm a student advocate for the social justice school, right? And I'm also a former student, a part of the first graduating class at the social justice school. And I just want to say, like, or today, I just want to take a moment to talk about like a place that truly helped like shape the person I am today. And like when I like even think about my time at SJS, I think about more than just the classrooms and the textbooks. I think about a school that taught me to find my voice, to stand up for what's right, and to see the world beyond myself. It wasn't just about learning math or history. It was about learning how to lead, how to think critically, and how to care deeply about the world around me and my peers that I want to see succeed as well. The social justice school didn't just prepare me for high school. It prepared me for life. It showed me that my ideas matter, that my actions matter, and that what I do in the world will create change. In a city like DC, where so many young people are still fighting for opportunities, schools like SJS are not just important, they are necessary. We need spaces where students aren't just pushed to pass tests, but are encouraged to dream bigger, challenge injustice, and believe in their own power. Without SJS, I honestly don't know where I would be today. It gave me the tools to believe that change isn't just possible, it's something we can create. And I know that with more schools like SJS, we can lift up a generation of young leaders who will make DC and the world a better place. Thank you.
Now, see, Nasir, you can't come on and give that kind of speech and then I can't see your face.
I mean, you can see it. I can show you if you want.
No, if you're not comfortable, you don't have to. But there you go. Hi, Nasir. Thank you
You
so
can
much.
see me.
I see you. I see you just fine. Thank you for your testimony. Very, very proud of you. Where are you in high school now?
I'm currently in the 10th grade at Benjamin Banneker Academic High School.
All right, Nasir. I can.
And I currently have a 3.9 GPA, ma'am.
You better brag. There you go. There you go. There you go. So see, this is exactly why we do the work that we do. So thank you so much, Nasir. Continue to change the world the way you just spoke and advocated for what you believe in. Very, very proud of you. Continue. See, now I see your face. So when I see you change the world, then I'll know.
All right, I will. I'm glad you know now that
All
I'm who
right.
I am.
Thank you, Nasir. Have a good night.
Are you too?
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, Joan, I don't think do we have any of our other representatives? Maybe Maka, Aaliyah, Shantae, or Tanaya?
I don't see them. Let me just give one last quick check and I'll let you know.
Okay, and if you've heard your name and you're there, even under another name, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand and we can promote you. Otherwise, if you do watch this, feel free to still please submit your public comment. You can submit it to us at public.comment@dcpcsb.org. We'd love to read your statement and to hear from you. What you think, Jonah? No?
Nope, I don't see them, Chantel.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. All right, thank you to our speakers this evening. This concludes the public comment and public hearing portion of our agenda. Board members, may I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I move to approve the agenda for the April 29th, 2025 board meeting.
Is there a second?
A second.
All right. Secretary Shakur Adamafania, if you could take roll call, please.
Sorry, I'm having a bit of technical difficulties. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Chair Wright,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Sandman,
Aye.
Treasurer Stanley Beatty,
Aye.
Board Member Davis,
Aye.
Board Member Crucy,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well.
All right, motion passes. Next on our agenda, we have truancy notices of concern for multiple schools. For this item, I will yield the floor to Kirsten James, Director of School Quality and Accountability, School Performance Department, to introduce the proposal.
Good evening. My name is Kirsten James Floyd, and I'm a director in the School Performance Department. DCPCSB staff recommends you vote to issue a notice of concern to 5 schools for surpassing the truancy threshold in DCPCSB's attendance and truancy policy. Under the attendance and truancy policy, a school may be subject to a notice of concern if it does not maintain a truancy rate at or below the truancy threshold that corresponds to its program type and grades served. DCPCSB staff reviewed attendance data from October 5, 2024 through March 31, 2025, and found the following. DC Prep Public Charter School, Anacostia Middle, had a truancy rate of 33%. Rocket Ship Public Charter School, Legacy Prep, had a truancy rate of 36.5%. Statesman Public Charter School had a truancy rate of 30.6%. And Two Rivers Public Charter School, Young Elementary, had a truancy rate of 35.2%. These campuses surpassed the 30% threshold for traditional schools serving grades pre-K through 8. Digital Pioneers Academy Public Charter School, Capitol Hill, had a 37.2% truancy rate, and Washington Leadership Academy Public Charter School had a 35.2% truancy rate, exceeding the 35% threshold for traditional schools serving grades 9 through 12. While Digital Pioneers PCS Capitol Hill's truancy rate is above the 35% threshold for traditional high schools, DCPCSB staff encourages its board to use its discretion and opt not to issue a notice of concern to this campus because the campus demonstrated significant in-seat attendance, or ISA, and truancy improvement. To elaborate, Digital Pioneers PCS Capitol Hill's ISA rate through March 31st, 2025 was 84.6% compared to 79.7% at the same time last school year, an increase of nearly 5 percentage points. Additionally, the campus's truancy rate through March 31st, 2025 is 37.2% compared to 60.6% around the same time last school year, a decrease of more than 23 percentage points. This school year, the school's truancy rate surpassed the threshold as of March 31st, 2025. Last school year, Digital Pioneers PCS Capitol Hill surpassed the truancy rate threshold much earlier in December 2023. The attendance and truancy policy says the DC Public Charter School Board may, at its discretion, decide not to issue a notice of concern in cases where a school reaches the thresholds but has demonstrated improvement in ISA and/or truancy rates. Before we invite school leaders to engage in conversation with the board, I'll take a moment to summarize the attendance and data collection and review process. Schools submit attendance data to OSSI from their student information systems, and DCPCSB receives attendance data in a nightly feed from OSSI. DCPCSB recognizes that student attendance records may change during the school year for several reasons, including data entry corrections, a student turning 18 and aging out of truancy identification, or excused absence documentation being submitted or recorded after the fact. Every school with a truancy rate exceeding its corresponding threshold was notified on April 8th and given the opportunity to review and confirm the accuracy of the underlying data. If schools notice the data does not align with their records, we encourage them to reach out to OSSI to explore the source of the discrepancy and to keep DCPCSB informed of any updates or findings. DCPCSB's data team calculated truancy rates for October 5th, 2024 through March 31st, 2025 on April 7th, 15th, 23rd, and yesterday, April 28th, to ensure staff's recommendation reflects the most current data. You'll notice tonight's agenda includes Perry Street Preparatory Public Charter School, but the corresponding proposal does not. This is because Perry Street Preparatory Public Charter School corrected its data and it no longer exceeds the truancy threshold. We've been advised by the Office of Open Government that we shouldn't update our agenda after it's been posted, so we left Perry Street Prep, PCS, on the agenda, though we're no longer recommending a notice of concern for the school. We encourage schools to continue scrutinizing their data, potentially correcting underlying enrollment and attendance records with OSSI. If such corrections result in an updated truancy rate that does not surpass the relevant truancy threshold, then DCPCSB staff will ask the board to rescind the notice of concern. Representatives from the schools are present and prepared to answer your questions. We will ask the schools to join us in two groups. First, we will promote the representatives from Two Rivers Public Charter School, DC Prep Public Charter School, Rocket Ship Public Charter School, and Statesman Public Charter School. After their conversation, we will promote representatives from Digital Pioneers Public Charter School and Washington Leadership Academy Public Charter School to engage with the board.
So Kirsten, before we go into this first set of schools I'm fine with, but before we go into the other two, I actually want a level of clarification for the request that you just made in your open statement to the board. So I know that was regarding Digital Pioneers.
Yeah.
Specifically, well, I guess in some way, while other schools are coming up, please continue to promote them, Jonah and Courtney. But I think one of the questions was whether or not the same evaluation that you've done for that LEA you did for the others to determine whether or not they should be off. In particular, this is the first time I've heard you compare where they were last year to this year and whether or not that means they should receive a notice. So if I were one of the schools, I'd be wondering, well, did you look at that for me? So I guess actually it is applicable even for this group. So can you explain that, please?
Yes, I did pull the data for all of the schools recommended today. And I will say while Statesman has slight differences in their performance between last year and this year in both truancy and attendance, in-seat attendance, the change is minimal. So, for example, Statesman has 30.6% truancy rate this year. At last year at this time is 31.4, which is a small decrease. And their in-seat attendance last year at this time was 88.1, and according to our records, during this time period was 89.2. So again, a slight increase. Washington Leadership Academy, their in-seat attendance last year was 83.3%, and this year it's 84% for the time period. Those are everybody else. All of the other schools showed declines. So either their in-seat attendance rate is lower at this time this year, or their truancy rate is higher than it was at the same time last year. The reason that I specifically requested that you consider using your discretion with Digital Pioneers is because their change was so significant. To have an increase of 5 percentage points in ISA and a decrease in over 20 percentage points in truancy felt compelling enough for me to mention that. But as the board, it is at your discretion whether or not to issue notice of concern to any of the schools who have these increases in attendance, in-seat attendance and or truancy.
Okay, and I agree with that, but when we get there, I think there needs to be another level of discussion because I still have further clarification, but I don't know that it impacts this group of schools here.
Okay.
Because it seems incredibly it seems odd. And I'm not sure what the ask is, and if they've met the mark, they've met the mark. But I'll talk about it when we get there. So I do want to welcome the schools. I think we have school representatives from Two Rivers Young Campus, DC Prep, Anacostia Middle, Rocket Ship, Legacy Campus, and Statesman PCS. I see that all of your names end up being probably the person who the invite was sent to. So I'm not sure who wants to speak on behalf of each school, but when you do, if your name is not your name, if you could just clarify when you speak in the role that you have. So to avoid kind of having each school go through and explain, I'm going to actually open it up to board members first to ask any questions that you might have of the schools. Board members. I know y'all just had a meeting last night, but we got you got to be here with me. Do you have any questions for the schools?
Yes, I do have a question. Would love to hear from all of the schools if they can share a little bit more about ways in which they're engaging with city services to address the truancy issue. And then I'll start there. And then my second question is around how your board is being engaged, not just in the truancy issues, but just school climate overall. Two questions.
Okay, schools, if we'd like to start with either, if we go in alphabetical order, I guess with DC Prep. I see Laura's on the line. I don't know if you're going to speak for, but I also see Cassie, so I'm going to speak.
Hey, thank you so much for having DC Prep here and for the important work you all are doing. To answer your question, I'll start with the answer about the city agencies, and then I'll defer to Laura to share about how we're interacting with our board at DC Prep. I would say our primary ways are that we are trying to work with Child and Family Services when we have a student in their care that has exceeded truancy or is chronically absent. And so we have seen that be effective and helpful when we are very proactive with them. But if we rely solely on the letters we produce, we don't always have the back and forth that we seek. We are also partnering with Everyday Labs, which is an organization that's helping us with attendance and family communication. And we do that specifically for our Anacostia cluster. And we're also using the bus service that comes through OSSI that's helping with, we have about 20 to 25 students who are engaged in that service. And we're trying to think through how we could have partner to support even greater with transportation.
Great, thank you, Cassie. I do just want to note for the record, board member Leah Cruzy has stepped away because she is recused from voting on issues regarding Two Rivers Public Charter School. But if we could hear from the other schools, specifically how you're working with what your partnerships with city agencies might look like and support that you're getting there.
This is Sean Hartnett, and I want to apologize that I'm in my car. I just came from a class and I couldn't stay in the building. And I was confused about whether or not we were going to start or be at the end of this, but you should know that I am noted up and ready to go. And so what I would say to you is that we are partnered with any number of organizations that you all have heard in the last 4 weeks that you have been having these conversations. We're partnered with them all. We are particularly interested in getting additional support with regards to the work that we're doing with CFSA and anybody who's doing family services to help us to figure out how we support, especially for those of us, and I think that you all can appreciate this. There are a bunch of us who've been called to this, who are the folks who are serving significantly influences of groups that struggle with it is continuing to go up, even with the demographic that is struggling the most. We are finding it difficult to find that city agencies, City Year is with us, We Are Sound Minds is with us, Paving the Way is with us, Preventative Measures is with us. to really focus on those most recalcitrantly struggling families who are struggling with poverty, getting them into the schools more. And so we're kind of trying to figure out, listening from to the other folks who've spoken, who are they working with who are really, really supporting them and getting this better addressed. And so we are definitely partnering. We're definitely looking for more people to partner with. But we also recognize that these are conversations about poverty and how all of us are dealing to support families who are struggling and have been struggling for an extended period of time. Of course, exacerbated to some degree by COVID, but the fact is these are families who were struggling a little bit before. It has just been exacerbated as we've extended beyond COVID.
Thank you, Sean. Does any of the other schools want to even address the other? Because I agree, I think we've heard the same kind of partnerships and resources around the city. Anyone want to speak to how your board is involved in terms of understanding? I think that was your second question, Secretary Adamafania.
Yes, that's correct.
I'm happy to share about how we're approaching that at DC Prep. So at DC Prep, of course, the board knows that we're here tonight, and we've shared with them like the same letter that we sent to all of you. And in the conversation with the board, we're also naming that it'll be a priority focus in the same way that other areas that are particularly important to the board and to kind of oversight of us will be like an ongoing focus in all of our future board meetings to kind of like elevate it beyond like what we share in board notes. And so we'll make it like an active part of discussion. And we've also said that we're going to make an even more significant focus within our schools subcommittee of the board. We're in the process of like revamping like a dashboard for the board, and we can find ways in which we can make that an opportunity to like dig even more deeply. So I've been in conversations with the head of our schools committee about that, and we're going to work together to make that an even more prominent focus.
Good evening. I'm Zakia Sakor, Executive Director with Rocket Ship. I can speak to the board piece as well. We actually update our board, as most of us do, about our attendance quarterly and talk about our interventions and how we're supporting students and families to get to school. We have a achievement committee that focuses primarily on the achievement, but also any student services, student experience, and also the family engagement experience at Rocket Ship. And so as a part of that work, we have brought in our Ashley Watson, who's on our call right now, is our Senior Director of Student Services. She comes in and speaks with the board directly about how we're intervening with families. I think one thing that we could do a lot more is what we've done actually this year has changed our calendar. One of the things that impacted our attendance last year was we had minimum days, which really impacted how students were coming to school. And this year, with the support of our board and some feedback from them, we shifted that. And that's one example of how we work with the board. It's really tactical around how we address some student needs. But we could probably do more about raising this flag around attendance and getting feedback and support from them.
Yeah, Zakia, that's one of the things. I think part of a lot of times when we ask about elevation to the board, one, it is about knowledge and do board members know what's going on? But then some of it is about how you utilize your board to be additional advocates for you, right? Because they sit in spaces that a lot of times you as school leaders don't, and they know people and can continue to say, hey, I was just in a board meeting where my school is facing a 40% truancy rate, and Child and Family Services and helping or whatever that looks like. So continuing to elevate understanding some of the supports and people that you all have on your boards, supporting you in this work. Board Member Davis, I know you had a question.
Yes, thank you, Chair Wright. Just a basic question around, the gathering of data. Like, can the schools please just tell me about the process of, gathering and validating your data? Is it a particularly arduous process? Because some schools yesterday, we really wanted to make sure that the process was clear to everyone. So can you just let us know, like, are you having issues with the process? Is the data, are you finding it relatively, simple to, validate your data? Just give us an overview, please.
I can take that one. This is Belisha Reeves from Two Rivers Public Charter School. We have our data manager who pulls our data on a daily basis, in addition to our FDAs. We have, whether it's through ESP, through OSSI, as well as our internal systems that collect our attendance data daily so that we can get that information to teachers. They are then able to check if students have come in late for that day and see how we can then make those corrections. When we look at rolling that data up, our registrar and data manager manage the system of looking at it on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, as well as then a quarterly basis for our leadership teams and our staff. And that data is managed in Tableau. We're also just partnered with Empower K-12 to ensure that we are even looking at it longitudinally to see that we are able to then compare how we are improving from one year to the next moving forward. So I think it is for us the consistency piece in our leadership team meetings as well as our senior leadership team meetings to bringing that up and continuing to see how we can improve on our interventions and implementation of incentives for families to get our truancy rate down. This is the first time that we've been in this particular predicament, but we definitely, it's like we have the data. So how do we consistently make sure that it is in front of the right people on a regular basis? And I'm grateful that our board chair is here today, Greg Trumbull, as well as Principal Megan DeRitter from Young, who really do work tirelessly, I would say, um, to help us in that process.
Thank you for that. During your response, I saw a lot of heads nodding. So I'll just move on to my second question, and that is, in the instance of an error, are you finding it pretty simple to have these errors corrected?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ashley Watson. From Rocket Ship. I would say normally, yes. Where we are finding at Rocket Ship Legacy Prep, being in this particular situation has a lot to do with looking back at the data regularly, particularly during a pretty big leadership transition that impacted the person who was responsible for entering the data, training the new person to enter the data, while also at our regional level. My role at our regional level really supports school leadership teams in weekly data meetings, building out systems aligned to incentives, responses, student support team meetings, all of the things around how we are creating a culture of joy as well as positive attendance while also addressing where we are seeing gaps. And I think at Rocket Ship Legacy Prep this year, where we have experienced a lot of challenge, has been me stepping out of that seat and stepping into the principal role during a mid-year transition, while also losing our office manager, who was the person who was trained and very seasoned in that data entry. And so I think a lot of the work that we have done, just being able to go back and update and rectify, we did build out systems at our regional level to be able to capture the data. We started using a system called Parent Square this year, where we do use the attendance feature that has allowed us to have two-way communication with our parents when they are, students are absent, when they need to communicate. It's really an issue now of being able to go back and update those through that transition and make sure that the data we have internally reflects the data that we have in Power School and therefore feed it over to OSSI.
I would just add that we, after getting the notice, we started to go back through our records and update some of the data that was missing from that time we had the transition from the attendance manager, and we let Kirsten know that we'll be updating that data by the end of this week.
Want to turn it over to Treasurer Stanley Beatty. Oh, I'm sorry, Board Member Davis, I saw you come off mute. Did you have a follow-up for one of the schools?
No, just wanted to know if any other schools had any issues with, correcting errors. You know, the meeting last night, we just want to make sure that the process is very clear, it's very simple, because we do, we all know how important it is for students to be in school.
Yeah, I don't think at DC Prep, I don't think that is a big issue, our ability to correct the errors. I think similar to some of the other schools, it's our consistency and habits around making sure we're using the data and having a real team approach. So having our operations team who sit at the front desk and see the kids when they walk in, coordinating with our community assistant principal and our student support coordinator. In every classroom, we have an attendance advisor. So it's more about like how we're making sure that we stick to our habits and processes of using the data really regularly and putting it in front of the right people and doing the right problem solving, that I think is really critical for us to improve and to see gains. But I don't think it's like the systems that are getting in our way.
Treasurer Stanley Beatty.
Yeah, so thank you, Chair Wright, and thank you for prodding us to engage as deeply as we did yesterday. The tail end of this conversation was helpful for me, quite frankly. In listening to the truancy discussion last night and tonight, I struggle with commentary because it's difficult for me to understand. Or perhaps the LEAs just haven't explained what the true issue is, right? Because we seem to have this cohort of LEAs that are struggling with truancy, and then we have other LEAs that don't have a problem at all, right? And so I've heard identified tonight that perhaps it's the population, which I don't necessarily subscribe to, because all LEAs serve all of our DC kids. And so it would be difficult for me to believe that any LEA that has a truancy issue is serving a different profile of DC kid than any other LEA that doesn't have a truancy issue. So I don't think it's population because it's all DC kids. I've heard tonight that perhaps there's some data collection practices. Maybe that's the issue, but it is just difficult for me to sort of figure out why you have this distinct cohort of LEAs that are struggling with truancy when other LEAs are not. And so I would really encourage you all to study best practices. I think Board Member Davis was getting at it when he asked you if you were struggling with data collection. If there are things that you all can do to sort of strengthen your admin practices, I would really encourage that, because for me as a board member, and I'll only speak for myself, there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect because it's not like all DC schools are struggling with truancy. If that were the case, then I would buy the population argument. That's not the case. It's just a cohort of you. And so there's something underlying that I can't put my finger on that you all are struggling with. And so I would really push you to identify what's truly going on, and right size it in short order, because I will echo Board Member Wright, or excuse me, Chair Wright, and she says it all the time. We know that if children are not in class, if they're not in school, they can't learn. And it is not their fault. It is not their fault. We are not engaging them and appropriately motivating them to show up.
I would love to have the opportunity to speak to that. And I do appreciate Ms. Stanley Beatty, just the push to make sure that we are not making excuses. And I think that I have watched these hearings over the last few weeks as many of my contemporaries have come up and tried to offer context. And sometimes that does get pushed back on us as, well, are you all making excuses? And so I would like to say that I spent 2 hours last week with Phyllis Jordan, who is a national expert on chronic absenteeism across the nation. She was brought to us by one of our associates, but I spent some special time with her because I wanted her to help me to figure out what we were seeing. As a school, it's only 30.6, which is still high for us. It is also lower than it was last year. Our actual in-seat attendance is a little bit higher than it was last year. And we serve a population, Black and brown boys, who nationally, she has made clear, is the population that is struggling the most. And so she actually spent quite a bit of time asking me, what were we doing to cause our boys to come to school every day at the rate that they are? And so we think that in that way, there's some things to celebrate. At the same time, we really do. I actually asked her to help me spend more time in the adaptive space. We will be doing some things that are technical that are probably going to correct us and move us back to a rate of about 27, because we very simply held the standard to ourselves this year that was extremely high, because we wanted to be seen as doing something about attendance. And so we put these punitive measures in place and stopped counting things as excuse, and took our excuse rate down from 28 or down from 23 to 28 to 23, which would correct us immediately. We also stopped registering certain things to encourage our parents to shift. And what we realized at the end of that is what we always know: punition does not change attendance. It ends up putting you in a situation where you're having arguments with parents who don't have that much of an attendance problem anyway, but they're arguing about the fact that they're losing time, because their kid can't do something. And so, and of course, the incentives, there's no way to incentivize a mother who's dealing with a set of internal issues that are so great. I'm sorry, a raffle to a TV is not going to get them to come to school more when they have all kinds of and so this is about poverty. The families who we are seeing chronic recalcitrant attendance are families who are struggling the most. We are connecting them with CFSA. We're connecting them with the services that we have in-house, and we are moving to adaptive. It is the relationship. We are going back to home visits, 10 to 20 a week. We're going back into homes. We're going back to bringing a highly celebratory start to the day to make our kids drive the parents crazy about getting them to school. We're doing all of those things. And that is with this population, we wouldn't even be on this list. So I agree with you 100%. It's not always about the students, but I think that we have to be slightly more comprehensive when you look at the population that we serve in our building and say, oh, that doesn't matter. Oh, I'm sorry, it does. And we are breaking our necks to fix it. We're contributing in ways that are beyond what we're seeing others of our friends doing. The DME, we reached out to them last year, and he said, no, you're going to come and be the keynote address about how you're getting these boys to come to school. You're not coming to get help from us. We can't really offer you that much help. You're doing better than everybody else. And so even with that, it is hard for me to subject conversation that we have in this city about the performance of our kids in schools is indeed a conversation about the recalcitrant impact of poverty on families who've dealt with it the longest. And as a city, we haven't figured that out. We got to come together and figure it out together, because these disparate actions on the part of this group, that group, and the other, and we are in a space where CFSA, I'm not mad at them, they are inundated with some of the most crucial situations. They can't chase us around because we've said this kid's not been in school for 30 days, which to us 10 years ago would have been like 30 days. They would have been all through the house, but they're not even touching it anymore. And so we are really struggling with all of this together. I haven't seen any of my contemporaries come up and be lazy or try to get away from it, but it is kind of hurting us a lot.
So,
Chair Wright, if I may, can I just respond to him? I actually appreciate that. I thank you for that. That is probably the most comprehensive and deep conversation around truancy I've heard. So I appreciate that. Particularly your comments about how you, I guess, how you count absences and what you may count versus what you may not, how that affects your truancy rate. So thank you for that. I appreciate that, Mr. Hartnett.
Secretary Adamafane, did you have another question?
Yeah, one question I did have, and thank you, Mr. Hardnick, and yeah, thank you, leaders. I know that's all I can say. I've sat in that seat and I understand, so I get it. My curiosity is around transportation. Specifically, I know that there's been a shift in metro operations, reduction in some of the bus lines. I mean, I know the total phase out of the circulator, et cetera. Can folks just kind of share what the impacts have been to your school uniquely and what the conversations have been like with Metro, and just kind of uplifting the impacts of all of this on your students' attendance, if there's any correlation at all? I'm just sitting here trying to figure out how we got here.
I would certainly, if nobody else will take it.
Sounds like they're letting you be the spokesperson.
And I certainly don't mean to, but I would say 35% of our students are students with disabilities, 40% when you include the students who have a 504. And then we are also heavily connected with DC Connect, and a bunch of our folks are taking Metro. The OSSI situation with buses directly impacted attendance this year. Parents just got so tired of it that they decided, and you're going to see nods when I say this, they decided to keep their kids home. So we are Ubering them, doing all kinds of things to get the kids to come to school, which turns into a cost situation that is troublesome, because once you start Ubering them, then they want to keep them home and just call you and get the Uber. So then we cut all of that out and it became a problem. Now we're fighting with OSSI to get, and of course, kids are getting home at 7 o'clock at night. And so it really is work. Like there's not anybody on this call who did not get 5 notices from OSSI this morning that a bus was not coming, or a bus was going to be late, or we didn't get all the kids. And then of course, dropping the kids off, somebody's got to be able to pick them up. So the drama around that, we started with DC Connect routing 51 kids, and literally it went down to 13. Lost 30 plus families as a result of that, tried to bring them all back. So there's definitely work that we have now, and I will say we spent considerable time with DC Connect saying, hey, how do we help you? This is a service we need. We can make this better, but how we need help, more communication and clarity with regards to how parents get engaged and how they stay engaged. And so you're going to find that through all of my contemporaries who are here with us, there is some kind of a situation with Metro. Metro is also a safety issue. Kids come to school when it's safe to come to school. And when they can't get there safely, quickly, parents can't afford it, it becomes an issue. And I'm sure that there are others who can speak or at least echo that these situations are real and are indeed leading to some of the truancy issues that we are all facing.
I can also. You wanted to say something, and then I see Matthew Carruthers.
Yes, I can echo a lot of pretty much everything Sean named. I think we've done a lot of work to what Sean mentioned earlier around some of the adaptive work to address some of the issues that we're seeing and really partnering with our families. And when we started to collect data as we were sitting down in SST meetings, catching the family at arrival and dismissal on the day we got them there, we are hearing a ton around transportation. For some data purposes, our students with disabilities for both chronic absenteeism as well as truancy are significantly higher than our students without. We've tried to tackle this piece through, Metro cards, through Uber cards, but that is the number one issue when we are sitting down trying to address barriers with families is transportation. One other piece around the DC school bus that is run through OSSI. It is at capacity. We have been trying to get on this list for years at this point to get access for our students. And each year we are told that they have reached their capacity.
This is good to know. Matthew?
Good evening. I would agree with everything that's been said. I think our school, where we were located, we relied very heavily on the circulator before it was dismantled. It was the most consistent transportation from the Anacostia Metro Station that our students had. And so the buses that run in our area run very sporadically. So they're not as consistent as the circulator was. I think in the wintertime, particularly when the circulator stopped running, it became an issue of students not having to wait in the weather for long periods of time while waiting on the circulator, which was not an issue when we had the circulator, but now an issue with the buses. It was also an issue when the seasons were before the seasons changed. So when it was dark outside in the morning and then dark in the evening time in the transportation back home, that was an issue. I think we have also tried a number of things connected to partnering with our parents. And so I think in addition to what Sean spoke about in terms of poverty, I think some of the work that we're also trying to do is change the narrative around education for our parents, because some of them have had their own experiences with schools that have not been the best and have been traumatic. And so then that comes through in their parenting. And so we do try to do the incentives to get the kids excited about the school, but ultimately the parents have the final say so. So I think in addition to everything that's been said, I think it's also just thinking about the real life realities of some of the our families that live in Ward 8 and some of their experiences connected to school, their parents' experiences, their grandparents' experiences, and and it's not an excuse, but it really is a reality that we just have not found the right answer to just yet, even though we're definitely trying.
So I want to be mindful. This has been a conversation that we've had over the last couple of months, and our role as authorizer is really to enforce our policies, in terms of moving forward. I do just want to note one of the things that has been consistently said across every meeting, and I want to go back to what Matthew just said and what Sean said earlier, really is also about your family home relationships. And I think you all know that. You're school leaders. You've been here, you've done that, right? You know this work left and right. And it really is, unfortunately, schools are always meant to be the healer and the solution to every ill that is happening in your child, in your students, as well as families' life. And I would just encourage you all. I don't think anybody is on here wanting to be the highest performing truant school, right? That is nobody's goal. That is not on anyone's whiteboard saying, yes, let's look at this data. I think the honesty and candor that was said around, like, sometimes we take we track so much data, we take our hands off of that around, getting notices in, making sure that things are coded correctly. Sometimes somebody's absent, you have staff is absent, regular people putting in information. And so, continue to use your resources for that. But the main thing that I would encourage all schools to do is not forget your families. Go back to the roots, right? Like I heard Sean say it, like, I mean, sometimes it's about going to the families, figuring out what the issue is. How can you help them solve it? Make sure that they know that you're partners in it. That is one of the things that is important to this board when we talk about informing families. So when you get hit with things like this, notices of concerns, and, it comes up in your review, the more your families know about what you're being held accountable for, the more they can be partners with you. We underestimate the power of our families. You heard families on here talking about their schools. They love you all. They love what's happening. They love what you create for them. They love the spaces that you all have founded and led and run for them. So help them understand that these are the kind of things that put us in jeopardy, Mom. So when she doesn't come to school, this is what helps. So, like, you feel safe, you love Miss Pergman, then you got to understand every time you don't come in, that hurts me. And this is where you go. And when you talk to your families, I'm telling you, they'll have your back, in addition to some real realities that I think we need to face, like probably for those in the public who are listening, who are decision makers. Do we need to look at transportation for our school system? We are in a different world and place now. Is that something that we need to be looking at when we think about advocacy, pushing the alliance? Like, what does that look like? We might be past the day where we were a walkable city and everybody could just get to their local school. Do we need y'all know it, the yellow bus system, right? Do we need that as a city? So I think you all have heard it. I think you know it. One of the things I will always tell you, don't let our notice be what causes you to get in your data. Get in your data before we have to. That's my biggest push to you. Don't come here. Don't let the notice from us move you. Act as if you're gonna get a notice every month and ask that office manager the same question you asked her this week or him this week when you got the notice and said, I gotta go sit on this dais and be accountable for this. What is going on? Ask those questions regularly. All right, so if there's nothing else for this group, we're going to move to the next. And if someone from staff can let Board Member Cruzy know. Thank you, school leaders, for being here. Thank you for your candidness and your candor, and we will continue to push. We put a lot of stuff on record because people do watch us and hear, and they can make sure that we know the things that you're dealing with, as well as we hold you accountable for policies. So thank you. If we can have the school leaders from Digital Pioneers as well as Washington Leadership Academy promoted while the others fall off. Well, not fall off, that sounded rude. I apologize, as you all depart. Welcome back, Board Member Cruzy.
Hi.
So I think we now have representatives from Washington Leadership Academy as well as Digital Pioneers Academy as well. But before we talk, I just want to get a little bit more clarification from you, Kirsten, because you made a request for us that, if I'm just candid, seems very subjective, and I want to understand where that is coming from, particularly as we begin to engage with these LEAs.
Yep. The policy states that the board can use its discretion to choose not to issue a notice of concern. In an instance where a school has met or exceeded the threshold, but shows improvements in in-seat attendance and or truancy year over year. And so, yes, it can be interpreted as being subjective, that I'm making the suggestion that you exercise that for a particular school. But in sharing the data for the other schools, I am hoping that that illustrates the significant improvements that Digital Pioneers showed from last year to this year that no other school has shown in both areas of in-seat attendance and truancy. So that's the gist of it. The other part is, it does say in-seat attendance and or truancy, and part of the reason that the recommendation is made about Digital Pioneers is because of their improvement in both in-seat attendance and truancy.
And if I could just add, Chair Wright, I think part of the confusion might be, or one might ask the question, why would we bring the school forward if we're asking the board to exercise its discretion? And so the answer to that question is, our policy says if a school meets the threshold, we issue the notice of concern. So we've already notified the school that they're going to have a notice of concern, and we have to bring that to the board. It also carves out the discretion that the board does not have to act on it if the school meets the criteria that Kirsten just articulated. So I think that I recognize that it seems odd that we would bring a school forward and then say, don't issue the notice, but it is because of the way our policy is currently written. And it is an opportunity for us to look at that going forward and to discuss with the board whether or not we at the staff level could exercise the discretion not to even bring the school forward to the board. But as the policy is currently written, once the school meets the threshold and we verify and validate, and we must, if you will, issue the notice of concern, to recommend the notice of concern to the board or advance it to the board, and then we would make the recommendation for you to exercise your discretion. And I don't think we've had many instances of this in the past, or maybe any instance of this in the past, but it is really around how the language is written in the policy.
Okay. And I think the other thing that I would share, so thank you for the context from both of you. I think the other thing that I would share is, one, I know that this is a policy that we are looking at revising and moving forward to reflect more of where we are. I think the other thing that would make it easier, not just for the board, but also for the public and quite frankly for LEAs to understand, is if you know that that is part of the provision and something that you are considering or may be considered for a school, that should be what we share for all the schools moving forward, right? To say, and so that either that they do or don't meet this improvement, what is improvement, right? Because at the end of the day, we've got LEAs in front of us that have exceeded the threshold, and this is the first time that we're seeing and hearing this carve out. And so I just think as we work to become more transparent in our decision making and ensuring that we're equitable, it also just to make sure we understand. But I would appreciate a policy that actually gives you all that liberty on the staff way, right? So that it doesn't cause this level of confusion.
Yeah.
And so with that, Washington Leadership Academy and Digital Pioneers, welcome this evening. You have heard this, you all are the last of the Mohicans to go through this. So I don't think we need to reiterate everything, but I do know you all serve a very unique population with high school, right? You're 9 through 12. I always say high schoolers make you take your earrings off, right? It's a different group. It's a different group of children in terms of decision making, how they move, what it looks like, and what it means, honestly, and very seriously, to even engage their families, right? In terms of this work. So I think you all face a different type of situation around truancy. So if you could just share with us a little bit about how these factors, which I'm sure many of them also though mirror your counterparts in pre-K through 8, how it shows up for you, how you're thinking about it moving forward, and what it looks like for you all to improve these rates and get your students in school. You all opened up and you lead schools because you want students in seats. You want to get their brains stronger. So talk to us about how this is showing up for you as high schoolers. What you know what I'm trying, as high school leaders.
Stacy, go ahead.
All right, we can start. I have a brief presentation, so I'm going to pop my slides up. Michelle showed us last week, and also wanted to contribute to some of the great conversation that I think has been had so far here tonight. And then we are respectfully going to request that the board exercise its discretion on saying no to our notice of concern. We do have a board member present, Erica Beal. I'm not sure that she was elevated, so if we could add her as a panelist, that would be great. She was going to mention that our board is deeply aligned with making sure that we have really strong attendance and that everything that we're going to say in this presentation doesn't change, that we're deeply committed to making sure all kids are in school every day. That is the most important thing. Our rate was only 0.2% above the truancy threshold. And additionally, once we removed withdrawn students from the number and imputed valid excuses, it fell below the truancy threshold. But I do want to name that we submitted this information past the PCSB's deadline. So this information was not to the PCSB in time prior to this hearing. I wanted to give a little more context on high school students in particular and why they don't come in answer to some of the questions earlier. These are real examples of real students who are not coming and who are in this truancy list. There are students afraid of violence, especially walking to and from school and the metro, especially in the winter. We get dips because of that. Pregnancy, caring for younger children is a huge one for our high school students. A lot of high school students in the district have to do this. Some of our high school students work and will sometimes work very late at night and then miss the next day on a regular basis. Medical disorders, we have a few students right now who have seizure disorders and are regularly missing school, but it doesn't reach the height of home and hospital instruction. So we're unable to get them like excused absences or be able to give them instruction at home. Safety threats. OSSI did do a carve out this year for safety threats, but you have to have reported your threat to the police. For a lot of students, if they actually report their threat to the police, they will be in more danger than they would be not reporting the threat to the police. So this is at any given time, a handful of students who are not at school. And then some students are taking care of their caretakers at times and out of school. So this is adding on to Sean's really important conversation about poverty. That is absolutely not an excuse. It's just something we have to continue trying to work on and figure out how to make sure that we get all of these students to school and that we get the support services that we need. Oh, sorry, I put government parents. I meant government partners are largely absent here. Wanted to note for the board that there are programs that are supposed to be supporting us that really aren't. So there's a program called the Parent and Adolescent Support Intensive Case Management Program. We've referred 87 kids there and had only 12 of them followed up on at all. And only a couple of those follow-ups were actually meaningful. There is a teen parent assessment program, so we can refer students to that. But like many government programs, they don't have enough resources to follow up with kids in the way they need. We are required to report students to the Attorney General. We make dozens of these referrals every year. We've received less than a handful of follow-ups every year. And then finally, Child and Family Services. We've been told, like all schools in the district, basically don't report educational neglect anymore because there's so many cases of educational neglect that they will not follow up. And I think this year we had one case, and I could only remember one other time in my 9 years when CFSA followed up on educational neglect. So I just wanted to make sure the board also knows that our community government partners are not participating as they could or should be on some of these really severe cases where we need their help. Now I'm going to turn it over to our principal, Eric Collazo, to talk about what we're planning for next year. We heard you loud and clear on the past hearings that you want to see strong and early intervention plans. And so we wanted to make sure you knew what we're doing.
Hey everyone, Eric Collazo here, principal for WLA. Just wanted to just bring attention to where our sights are set for next year when it comes to just being proactive and having early intervention. And so like 3 key things that we're making sure that our attendance team is focusing on is, first of all, early action. Using the data that we've collected this year, we've already identified students who are truant and are returning to WLA. And so we want to make sure that those students that have made that truancy list, that we are making early contact in the summer, making sure that they understand what the expectations are for attendance, and then hopefully providing any kind of supports or whatever means are necessary to get them into the building every single day. The other piece that comes along with that is authentic connections. We know that when kids feel actually connected with the school, supported, wanted in the building, that also gives them a sense of wanting to be in the school building itself. And so again, before orientation week starts, we're looking for that subset of kids that we know are already on that truancy list to make sure that we're connecting with them, whether that be bringing them to the building or even doing school visits for our attendance team, just making sure that authentic connection is there and that hopefully they have some adult in the building that they now can say, I know, so they have a connection that's in the building. And finally, last but not least, just really setting the tone on what the definition of truancy is for parents and what the definition of chronic absenteeism for parents, and just like continuing to inform them. So even still before we begin the year, during that orientation week, we want to set clear guidelines that we are aiming for better than 90% attendance throughout the year. And what that really means and translates to try to make it into language that they would understand is that this means that students should be absent no less than 1 time a month. So again, by setting these clear things and also making these connections and having that early outreach, we're hoping that we're going to continue to see growth in that area of, decreasing our rates for truancy and increasing our attendance on a daily basis. And on the next slide, you'll see some of our interventions that we actually have planned already.
Finally, we did want to, also bring up what has been mentioned earlier tonight. The board in the policy has discretion to decide not to issue a notice of concern if there's been year-to-date improvement in in-seat attendance rate and or truancy rate. Wanted to note that our in-seat attendance rate has improved over the last 3 years. And I think more importantly, even though it's not mentioned in the policy, our chronic absenteeism rate has improved more. And as the board knows, and we consider that number to be potentially even more important than the truancy rate because it means the student has been in school no matter if they have an excuse or not. So this is actually how many days a student has or hasn't been in school, excuse or no excuse. And so we're working really hard on that number the most, chronic absenteeism. And so our chronic absenteeism rate and our in-seat attendance rates have improved over the past couple of years. And so we are hoping that the board may decide to use its discretion not to issue a notice. If the board does issue a notice, though, or not, we will continue to work really hard to improve attendance. And it remains just as important to us either way, essentially. But we did want to ask. So thank you for this opportunity. And please feel free to ask us any questions.
Want to give the opportunity. I know Digital Pioneers, Kirsten spoke about what was happening, but if there was anything you wanted to add.
Sure. Thanks, Chair Wright and other members of the board. I also want to thank Stacy. I think that she really hit it on the head with just some of the specific concerns related to high school that are a little bit different than middle school. We were on this call with the board the last time, and we continue to make it a priority. One of the things that we shared was about being proactive. We appreciate Kristen's update on where we were compared to last year to this year, and it really is about being more proactive. So what I'm going to do is turn it over to Mr. Mason, who is our Director of Operations, just to talk specifically about some of the steps that we have taken. But before he does that, I will say two things. Our board is actively involved. We report on on our academic committee reports on attendance, just as they do on academics. One of the strategic things that our board asked us for is, look, we have a lot of data, to your point, Chair Wright. We have a lot of data, but it's about being more strategic with the data. And what I can really share is I think that all the schools, we're all doing a lot of different things, and there isn't one solution for every family. And so the real answer is it just takes time. It just takes capacity and consistency. And so dedicating the team to address this issue, as important as it is, I think is really the real lesson learned. You need people, you need consistency to address that issue. With that, I'm going to ask Mr. Mason to give a little bit of an update around what we've been doing to be proactive and what we're going to continue to do to make sure that students come to school.
Yes, thank you, Chair Wright and members of the board. I just want to share one slide, if that's okay. Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to make this. Okay, so while we have made improvements, we still are not, content or happy with where we are at currently. We do want to be below the threshold, so that we are not here having this discussion, but it is an important discussion. And so I just want to kind of talk about kind of the things that we're doing and that we're seeing. Um, and so the first is we've just like really invested scholars in the data. And so whether that's, the weekly grade level attendance competition, or it's every single morning, scholars are seeing this slide that's up top where it literally goes through what was your grades attendance last week? What is the importance of being here? It is a part of every morning announcement that they go through. They get updates, and then that following Monday, they figure out who had the best attendance. So really grounding scholars in the data, making them partners in this. And actually just like kind of going back to something Chair Wright said, which is like letting like them know that by them not coming to school, they're hurting the community that they love and that they want to be a part of. And so that, we need them here so that they can learn, grow, and meet the goals that we've set out for them. I think something else that's been mentioned is just closing the information gap with families. Early outreach, we're already have plans for this summer, talking to the families that have fallen into the truant chronically absent category and coming up with attendance recovery plans for them leading into the year. Explain to parents that, even if there's a note, they could still be considered chronically absent once they accumulate, the difference between the two. And repercussions is a strong word, but also just like talking about like the fact that there are direct results between proficiency and attendance, right? And so, we look at, scholarships and going off to college, like families need to know that when your scholar's not in school, they can't learn. And when if I'm not mistaken, there's like almost up to a 20% decrease in proficiency for scholars that have satisfactory attendance versus scholars that are extremely or severely chronically absent or truant. So really just closing that information gap with scholars and families. I think the other thing we learned is that, as we, this is our fourth year of high school, our founders are graduating, it's our first graduating class, and we have been building the high school as we go. And one of the things that we really did to increase from last year to this year is the investment in leveraging of sports after school activities and community partnerships that everyone's talked about on these calls the last few weeks. But we've launched and expanded football, track, esports, basketball, step, and cheer. Last year we had 101 participants. This year we have 183. That's like went from like a 36% to a 48% participation rate. Additionally, we've been reaching out to every community partner that we can. So for example, Martha's Table hosted a barber program that one of our kids graduated from. So we went out, asked the guy to come to DPA. Now he does a barber program for 20 of our kids who were in this truant chronic absenteeism category that now are coming to school so they can go to barber school after as an extracurricular. Also, like using Marion Barry Summer Youth and, telling kids, hey, you need 90% attendance if you want to work at DPA over the summer. So really leveraging the partnerships and the activities that are out there to increase attendance. I think one of the other buckets is obviously our school-wide approach to this. This year, we kind of included my team to kind of really ground this conversation in the data and mass communication. So every day, our grade level deans are making calls and texts to every kid that's not on time. We are sending mass blanket texts via text, emails, via call fire. And really just making sure that attendance is at the forefront all day, every day. You see a kid that hasn't been in school, you'll say, why weren't you here? Make sure you're here every day. And then the last two quick points that I'll touch on is what something that I think we really do need to look into, which is the yellow buses back in DC. I think that that would be a game changer for the district as a whole. I think that there are some real safety concerns that present, to our scholars, specifically our student population, that prevent people from going to school. There was an incident in the neighborhood. Now, the people that live around there, want to keep their kids home that day. So we have heavily invested in scholar transportation and safety plans for kids that are in neighborhoods that maybe there was an incident. So we're going to give you a voucher that week. Parents call, hey, my scholar was robbed at the metro station. They don't feel comfortable walking. I can't drive. Okay, well, we'll take care of the transportation this week. So really just going on an individual basis with these children and their families to support them on how to get them to school. And while there has been improvement, we understand that we still have a lot of work to do around this. We plan on, increasing where we, grew in some of these areas and doubling down. But I think that that's really the headline for us. And I think the last thing I will say is that we did make it streamlined process for parents to connect with the SST team for when their scholar is absent. So where it was used to be like handwritten notes were coming in, we've created a one-stop shop for where parents go. If your scholar is not going to be in school, they note the absence so that we are not missing anything and our data is accurate. And so I think when we put all of that together, which is why we have the increase we had, but once again, understanding that we still have a lot of work to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfred. I appreciate the context from both of you all in terms of the nuances that you face as high school. I also understand and hear the request in front of us, and we'll be talking and discussing as a board. I do just want to I want to continue to reiterate the same things I said to the other school. And Alfred, you just hit a lot of them, and Stacy and Eric, you did in your presentation as well, right? Like some of it is, I really appreciate, particularly at the high school level, connecting for them directly their data and the impact of their data and where they are, right? Like they're also just at the point in their lives where they need to understand the importance of attendance, not just at school, but in everything, right? Everything that they have to go to, work, moving on, life skills, et cetera. So I think the more you empower your students to do that work, the better. The other thing that I would just remind you all, and I get it, I'm not taking away from it, and we'll probably have a discussion about it in terms of notice. And I understand around the discretion that the board is given. Notice is just that. It is notice to say, hey, something's going on, something's not right. Not that you don't know it, but that it's raised to the level that now your authorizer is also looking at it as well. And there's real power in also using that to continue to support your school teams and understanding the importance of why you're on the front desk, why it matters, why home visits matter, why we got to still call even though, so why do we still need to text, and understanding how to use those things for your power. I think Board Member Davis, you had a follow-up question, and then we're gonna move to a vote just out of time.
Thank you, Chair Wright. It's a quick follow-up. I believe Ms. Kane, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said that the withdrawn students were removed from the data.
Yes.
Okay, and Ms. James, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought withdrawn students, if they were in school for 10 days, were not removed. Can you clarify that, please?
Yes, that's correct. So if a student was enrolled in your school for 10 days total, their truancy during the 10 days during the period that we are measuring or calculating for, their truancy rate stays with your school. When the student leaves and goes to a new school, their attendance data does not follow them. So their truant, it's not like you go and then the new school accepts a truant student. Their days enrolled kind of resets and they have a new opportunity at the new school as long as they're there for 10 days. So the idea is that when the student was with you for more than 10 days, were they truant or not? And so withdrawn students are not removed if they were enrolled at your school for a minimum of 10 days. So Stacy, I don't know which students they were or specifics around that, but just to clarify, that's withdrawn students don't get removed unless they were at your school for less than 10 days.
I didn't see that in the policy, the attendance and truancy policy from PCSB. Which business rules should I be looking at for that one?
I can have the data team share the eligibility criteria with you.
Okay, thank you.
Apologies, didn't realize I was on mute. Any additional questions or discussion on the part of the board? Okay, so I do know we vote on this in kind of a group. So I do want to thank you all for high school for being here. I'll share the same thing you just heard me say to the other thing. I don't think anybody is on here desiring to be the most truant school or that you're not doing everything that you can to get students over. I do know that this is a conversation we're having as an entire city, and I appreciate the efforts that I've seen that Eric and Stacy, you laid out, and the effort that you talked about, and really going to just emphasize for high schools, the more you empower those students to know and understand and continue to create the safe space, but not underestimating safe passage and all the things that you all go through as well, which is let's advocate for bus, but then, could be issues on the bus too. So anyway, I think there are ways for us to get through all of those things. So thank you for being here, board members. Any more discussion? And if not, I will entertain a motion.
Chair Wright, I'll make the motion. I move to issue notices of concern to DC Prep PCS Anacostia Middle School, Digital Pioneers Academy PCS Capitol Hill, Rocket Ship PCS Legacy Prep, Statesman College Preparatory Academy for Boys PCS, Two Rivers PCS Young Elementary School, and Washington Leadership Academy PCS for surpassing the truancy threshold in DC PCSB's attendance and truancy policy.
Chair Wright, if I might request that either we amend the motion, or if Sarah Cheatham says it's okay to make my vote as appropriate.
Yes, so I was gonna note that specifically for Two Rivers, that your vote would be recused for that particular LEA. Is there a second for this motion?
Second.
Second.
Okay. All right. And again, just to note, board member Cruci is recused from voting on Two Rivers. So when she votes, it will not be for the Two River portion of it. So Secretary Adam Afania, can you do a roll call?
Yep. Chairwoman Wright.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Sandman.
Aye.
Treasurer Stanley Beatty.
Aye.
Board Member Davis.
Aye.
Board Member Cruci.
Aye.
Abstention noted for Two Rivers Public Charter School Young Campus. And Chair Wright, I am an aye.
All right, motion passes. So again, to all the schools, not just the ones that are still on here, but all the ones listening, we also look forward to the notices being lifted because of these actions that you are taking to respond to what is happening in your school each day. So thank you for being here this evening. All right, next on our agenda are charter reviews. Our first school up for review is Sojourner Truth Public Charter School. I will now yield the floor to Gina Lucchese, Manager, School Quality and Accountability in our School Performance Department, to introduce the proposal and recommendation for Sojourner Truth PCS. I would also like to invite representatives from the school to provide remarks. So Justin Lessig, Denise Edwards, Ryan Abel, Wendy Pugh, Roger Perkins, Shelley Colbert, and Gabriella Abadanza. If you all can come on while Gina begins. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you, Chair Wright. Good evening. My name is Gina Lucchese. I'm a manager in the School Performance Department. Tonight, the board will vote on the charter review and continuance of the Sojourner Truth Public Charter School and Social Justice Public Charter School. The following charter review standard applies to each school. The School Reform Act stipulates that DCPCSB shall review a school's charter at least once every 5 years. As part of this review, DCPCSB must determine whether the school failed to meet the goals and student academic achievement expectations set forth in its charter, and whether the school committed a material violation of applicable law or of the conditions, terms, standards, or procedures set forth in its charter, including violations relating to the education of children with disabilities. If DCPCSB determines that a school has not met its goals or has committed a material violation of applicable law or of its charter, the board may, at its discretion, revoke the school's charter or grant the school a conditional continuance. Additionally, there is a fiscal component to the charter review. Per the School Reform Act, the board is required to revoke a school's charter if it determines that the school has engaged in a pattern of non-adherence to generally accepted accounting principles, has engaged in a pattern of fiscal mismanagement, or is no longer economically viable. Each school under review tonight adopted the Performance Management Framework, or PMF, as its charter goals. Each school also adopted one or more mission-specific goals. Given the disruption in schooling and data collection during the COVID-19 pandemic and DCPCSB's development of the Aspire system, DCPCSB ceased producing the PMF after school year 2018-19 and did not assess goal attainment for school years 2019-20, 2020-21, or 21-22. Consequently, for this review period, DCPCSB staff assessed each school's charter goals performance using school year 22-23 and school year 23-24 goal attainment pathway performance as outlined in DCPCSB's charter goals policy, and school year 22-23 and 23-24 mission-specific goal outcomes. The Sojourner Truth Public Charter School is up for its 5-year review. The school educates 288 students in grades 6 through 11 at a single campus located in Ward 5. In addition to adopting the PMF as its charter goals, Sojourner Truth Public Charter School also adopted one mission-specific goal measuring its percentage of core content teachers trained in the Montessori method by school year 23-24. In school year 22-23, DCPCSB staff assessed Sojourner Truth Public Charter School's full grade span, grades 6 through 9, under its pre-kindergarten through grade 8 framework. In school year 23-24, when the school began offering grade 10, DCPCSB staff assessed the school's middle school grades and high school grades separately. Middle school grades included 6 through 8, and high school grades included 9 through 10. In school year 22-23, the school fully met the Office of State Superintendent of Education Accountability System pathway by exceeding the target score of 40% on the DC school report card. In school year 23-24, Sojourner Truth Public Charter School's middle school grades fully met the growth pathway by exceeding publisher growth criteria in both reading and math on its nationally normed growth assessment, Northwest Evaluation Association measures of academic progress. That same year, Sojourner Truth Public Charter School's high school grades fully met the OSSE accountability system pathway by exceeding the target score of 40%. The school also met its mission-specific goal that year. DCPCSB staff determined that the school has not committed a material violation of law or of its charter. DCPCSB staff also determined that the school has not engaged in a pattern of non-adherence to generally accepted accounting principles, has not engaged in a pattern of fiscal mismanagement, and is economically viable. Based on these findings, DCPCSB staff recommends that the board vote to continue Sojourner Truth Public Charter Schools charter. Sojourner Truth Public Charter School representatives are available to speak about the school's performance over the past 4 years and to answer the board's questions.
Welcome, Sojourner Truth team. This is a big day for you all getting to this 5-year mark. So welcome. Justin, if you wouldn't mind just kind of introducing your team and their roles, and then we'll turn it over to you to, share with us what this has been like for you over these last 5 years before we jump in with our questions.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Chair Wright. Thank you, other members of the Public Charter School Board as well. So my name is Justin. I am founding executive director at Truth, and I'm joined by an extremely hardworking crew this evening. Founding principal Denise Edwards, founding chief operating officer Ryan Abel, assistant principal Dr. Perkins, who was one of our founding teachers 5 years ago. Director of Curriculum and Coaching, Gabriela Abondanza, who was also one of our founding teachers 5 years ago. Special Education Coordinator Chelly Colbert, who joined us in our second year and has been with us for the past 4. And then Wendy Pugh, currently board chair, who is also one of our founding board members.
Great. Welcome, team. All right.
Thank you very much. So we go ahead with an opening statement. Is that okay?
Yes.
So good evening once again to the Public Charter School Board. We were honored 6 years ago when the board approved our charter to become the district's first and only public Montessori middle and high school, and we're glad to reflect on our first 5 years of operation. Sojourner Truth is one of the few urban public Montessori middle and highs in the entire nation, and it has always been our goal to be not just a local model, but a national one. Our Montessori model makes us unlike any other public school in the district. We're the only middle school where all classrooms are mixed grade level, for example, and where students engage in a daily, uninterrupted 3-hour work cycle, combining targeted small group lessons and independent student work time. Our approach prioritizes joy, exploration, and the development of self-direction and project management skills just as highly as we prioritize content area skills like solving equations and identifying the main idea of a text.
Last year, we had the 13th highest percent of students scoring a 4 or higher on the CAPE ELA exam out of all 69 DCPS and public charter middle and high schools citywide, including the selective DCPS high schools. Notably, there was not a single school, DCPS or PCS, ahead of us with a higher at-risk population, and only one public charter school ahead of us with even half our at-risk percentage. We are also in the top quartile of all DCPS and PCS middle and high schools in math. We are proud to serve a population where about 30% of our students have disabilities. Last year, when compared to every other DCPS and PCS middle school and high school district-wide, we had the 4th highest percentage of students with disabilities scoring a 4 or higher on CAPE ELA. This same cohort is the top third of DCPS and PCS schools scoring a 3 or higher in CAPE math. We hold similar positions with respect to our English learner populations. One of our major goals when we founded Truth was to make Montessori accessible to all students from across the district and to disrupt the notion that Montessori programs are for privileged and more economically advantaged families. We are proud to have a percentage of economically disadvantaged students that is on par with averages citywide. Staying true to Montessori principles is very important to us. In our 5 years, we have sponsored about 15 teachers through 2-year intensive AMI or AMS Montessori diploma programs, each which has been a significant investment of around $15,000.
We have also faced significant challenges over our first 5 years. Our first year of operation was school year 2020-2021 during the pandemic. That year, we were one of only a few schools to have a cohort of students on campus full-time, and we were the first school in DC to partner with Curative for on-site COVID testing. Finding a facility space has been difficult, and after 4 years of consistent enrollment growth, we had to pause ahead of school year 24-25 due to an inability to expand our footprint and number of classrooms. We feel fortunate to have found and purchased a space that will become our high school campus next year, just a few blocks away from our current campus, where our middle school students will continue to stay. About 65% of our students are Black, 17% are Latinx, and about 15% are white. We have dealt with achievement gaps between our Black and brown students and our white students, particularly in math. We are proud of the fact, however, in every single year, MAP data shows that in reading, we have mitigated this gap over the course of the year. We have done this in math as well during each of the last 2 years, and our middle of the year data shows that we are on our way to doing it again, both in reading and math this year. Attendance at the high school has been an increasing challenge. In our first 3 years, we had one of the highest ISAs and lowest truancy rates in the district, but our numbers have dipped, and we are working hard with attendance initiatives, family communications, and strategic partnerships in order to regain a positive attendance position.
While our math data has typically put us in the top half of middle and high schools district-wide, achievement and sometimes growth in math has lagged behind our performance in ELA. We have invested significant resources in expanding our high-impact tutoring in math and also updating our math curriculum. And this year's middle-of-the-year math growth indicates that we are on trajectory towards stronger math growth than in past years. While we have strong re-enrollment in the middle school grades and the high school grades, one significant challenge has been keeping some of our highest achieving students between 8th and 9th grade. Historically, many of these students have transitioned to selective application schools in DCPS. We are working hard to combat this by promoting the academically rigorous and robust programming we have right here at Truth. And we look forward to having our first graduating class of 12th graders next year and being able to pointing to the success they are having with respect to college and career opportunities of Truth's 12th grade.
We've learned a number of lessons over the last 5 years. We believe our data supports our belief that strong adherence to an adolescent Montessori model can and will result not only in positive outcomes with respect to self-direction and self-management, but also strong ELA and math gains for all students, including those with disabilities or for emerging multilingual students. We've learned that systems need to grow alongside schools and that certain things that have worked maybe when we had 150 students have needed to be updated and evolve a bit now that we have 300 students, and will undoubtedly need to change more as we continue to grow. We want to express appreciation to the PCSB staff for their responsiveness and support during Truth's first stage as a school. And as we look forward to our next 5 years, our primary aim will continue to be establishing Sojourner Truth as the nation's premier public Montessori adolescent program. Thank you.
Thank you, Sojourner team, and kudos to you for getting to this point. I think it is a testament, even the way you all just presented, of the shared leadership and ownership of your school and what's happened. I've had the opportunity to be in your school and see the work that you're doing, and I know the commitment that you made. And you did all of this, one, serving, first off, the grades that I love the most. I love middle schoolers. I don't know why people are afraid of them, but then also to continue to advance to high school. And you did that through COVID. You did that opening up at a really tough time, and you've been thriving. And so congratulations to you for getting here. I know the hard work that has gone into it. I know the hard work to ramp up, because every time you add a grade, it's a brand new school, right? And I appreciate the reflections that I heard of where you are strong, but also recognizing where you still need to improve. And I think that last part, especially of like what worked when you open those doors, and you start with, 75 to 100 students, and then what it looks like to have 300 plus in your building is like night and day. So kudos to you all for the work and for getting to this portion. So I will turn it over to the board. I know starting with Board Member Davis, then Board Member Cruzy, and then Treasurer Stanley Beatty, followed by Vice Chairman Salmon.
Thank you, Chair Wright. I just want to start by celebrating Mr. Lessick and his team. I do have some experiences with Mr. Lessick and Ms. Edwards from a long time ago in a different school system. But I just want to celebrate the fact that you all opened up during COVID. You had some staffing changes, you dealt with that. You're looking for a location. And you're growing the school. With growing the school comes, culture challenges that you face. You actually have a bus that goes from the school to subway station. I'm sure there are times when there's, disruptions to that. Like, you all have handled all of these things so well and have met all of your goals, and that should be celebrated. So my question for you and for those who are listening is, what practices do you believe have enabled you all to accomplish these important goals? And then my second question is a bit of a tougher question, but undoubtedly some of your students will transition, right, to other schools. They may not stay all the way through 12th grade. Do you all have any concerns with the students who transition? So a student who decides not to go to ninth grade at Truth, but decides to go to another school, do you anticipate them having any difficulties adjusting? Like Mr. Lessig talked about the 3-hour uninterrupted block. Now they're going to go into a different system where they may have, 4 or 5 blocks throughout the day. Do you anticipate any challenges? And those are my 2 questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight. And thanks for both those questions. The first one, just around practices, I guess I will start. I accredit, everything to the team, particularly the people that are on this call. But really, we are fortunate to have like a really wonderful staff overall, both at the middle school and the high school level. So our teachers, our student support team, our operations team. From the very beginning, I will say, and I feel grateful, super grateful to this day of even, 7 years ago when we were trying to get this started. Denise was fully on board. Ryan was fully on board. Ryan was the founding director of operations at Tennessee's first public Montessori school. So a lot of people don't know that, that maybe are just getting to know Ryan, but so he was bringing already loads of startup experience as well as Montessori experience. Denise, you mentioned kind of knowing us from prior school system. So I had already had loads of respect for Principal Denise and everything that she was going to bring to the table and has brought to the table. And then just the fact that, again, I initially was not going to necessarily mention, founding person, but even as I was getting ready to introduce everyone, it felt appropriate just to kind of call out and recognize the fact that so many people representing our leadership today are people that were here from day one. And I'll also say that when Denise and I were in DCPS and talking about what, a school like Truth could be, we both had pretty little kids at the time, and we were thinking about like what we wanted to create for our kids. And I know Ryan has a similar kind of story about his entrance into Montessori and then leaving Memphis to come to DC to help open Truth. And now, I've got 2 kids at Truth that are kind of coming up through. Ryan has 2 kids at Truth. Denise's daughter is at Truth now. So it is, again, we feel very lucky and very special. I don't know if either Denise, Ryan, or Shelly, Roger, Wendy, Gabby, anybody wants to add anything else to that?
I can add, Dwight, it's great to see you. Thank you. To your point of like what have we done to get the results, I would say definitely remaining faithful to our model, remaining faithful to our mission and vision and our overall core values. Every decision that we make is rooted in those things to ensure that we remain Montessori aligned as well. We have ensured that a good number of our teachers have gone through the Montessori diploma program, so they also understand the core principles and the tenets of the approach, so they are able to implement the approach with fidelity. So it is small group lessons, it is personalization, it is knowing where each child is every day and being able to appropriately program and plan lessons for them and to meet them where they are. It is the opportunity to have mixed age classes. So you're creating spaces where students can learn from each other. Yes, it is a 3-hour work cycle block for our middle school and about a good solid 90-minute content block for high school, which allows time and space to build these strong relationships and create trusted adults for students, so students can, have somebody that they can go to and trust whenever any challenges may arise, or if it is to celebrate. So even just building the culture of consistency, right? So many students have seen their teachers transition too. So they were once their teacher and now that they have, are assuming different roles. So still a familiar face, but maybe in a different position. So we can show like everybody has the opportunity to grow. Everybody has the opportunity to explore and seek whatever it is that they are passionate about. So, whatever it is that we do for the student experience, we try to do the same thing for the adult experience. So then again, adults know what students are experiencing in the classroom.
Board Member Crucy.
Thank you for this and echoing the congratulations to the full team. It was 6 years ago, I guess, that I was very proud to be part of this body to support this application. And my question, I have two questions. The first, the first question is around kind of reflecting on some of the unexpected. And we know that COVID was unexpected 6 years ago. So setting that one aside, I'm curious to hear from whoever wants to share about what has been kind of unexpected that you have learned from. I know there are areas that even this very impressive 5-year review that you have areas that you want to improve on. So I'm curious to hear what has been unexpected and where you see opportunities for growth in this next 5 years. My second question will be with gratitude and also a similar kind of reflection for Chairwoman Pugh from a governance kind of angle.
Yeah, thank you for that kind of opportunity to reflect, Ms. Cruz. Yeah, it is. I do remember you being on that board when we were approved 6 years ago, and a lot has changed. We mentioned a couple times COVID 5 or 6 years ago. Reflecting on the unexpected, I mean, I remember sort of the challenge that other folks in the ecosystem of the charter space discussed around like the challenge of finding facilities. And it was tough in the beginning. And that is just maybe, I know it's an obvious answer, but that does stand out. I mean, it has been really challenging. We feel really fortunate to have found what we have found, and we feel good about it from a financial perspective. But that that has been tough, difficult. I think the evolution of like Aspire, it was a really, we feel lucky to have sort of come on when we did to be able to be part of, I guess, the development of a new framework. But I think I imagine it is the same for schools that have been around for 20 years, where adapting to the new framework and trying to figure out our own kind of like calculator and barometer. So on any given day, we can kind of say like, oh, if school ended tomorrow, here's about where we would be with respect to Aspire. We're not all the way there yet, but that's really somewhere where we want to be. When we think about like opportunities for growth, if we think of it sort of on a classroom level, and we might get into this when there are some questions maybe about academics, but we have spent much of our first 5 years focusing really on like environmental systems, which are super important to Montessori. So the concept of that, the structure of that 3-hour work cycle that Principal Edwards was talking about is super critical. And the way students are scheduled into their small group lessons and the way kids create their own work plans, like that took years and years to kind of get to the point that when any of you do visit the school and you kind of walk from classroom to classroom and you see the same thing happening in each room, that took a while. And those of you who maybe visited early on, you might see the contrast when you visit more recently. And so we're really proud of that. Where we are really eager to make the shift now is that we feel pretty good about a lot of those environmental systems that are in place. And we're able to, I think, put more energy and shift more energy now into like the pedagogy, the stuff that is incredibly important, and like the teacher moves and things that are happening. Because we do, even when you're in a small group, sometimes you might take for granted that, maybe you don't have to do a turn and talk, or maybe you don't have to do as many checks for understanding. But our experience has been over these last 5 years, like you do, like we still need to do those things. But so much of our feedback and a lot of our feedback has really been focused on environmental structures that like we are really eager as a school instructionally to shift into like now that we have those down for the most part, like let's really now talk about instructional moves and stuff like that. Ryan, do you want to mention anything? Is there anything operationally that you're thinking about when you reflect on the unexpected?
I guess just as a board member mentioned, I guess nothing unexpected, but like to the point of it was a new school every year. Like we kind of scaled up. So like every process that we started in our first year kind of like mirrored on the academic side. We kind of changed up the way we did. And I am definitely like the biggest penny pincher. I would always tell Justin, like, we have to find a free tool for this. We have to find a free tool for this. And then like, I guess as we grew, it was like, you know what? No, I guess we got to pay for this now. We're at a size where we need to pay for this kind of stuff. So it kind of went against what I was kind of going for, but it kind of made sense. But I think those kind of things that we kind of scaled up were just challenges that we were fortunately able to see coming. But then, of course, once you're there, it's like, wow, here we are and dealing with them. So, I mean, nothing significantly, but those kind of challenges in the past. And then as we continue to grow into the future, having 2 physical campuses is definitely like a operational challenge that we are looking and planning for as we go into next year.
I know we're gonna ask Wendy if from the board and the governance perspective. Before that, though, anyone else from the team, anything to add regarding reflecting on the unexpected?
I think I'll offer then in that moment of pause, a follow-up to nudge. We're coming out, this is one of those wonderful weeks when we get to have 2 meetings. And so I'm fresh from last night when we had an applicant come before us. And you may remember from 6 years ago that heady feeling when you and this team have really put a lot of work into this big idea you're really devoted to and may feel really wildly different. One of our big responsibilities as an authorizer is to have this application process and to vet ideas that may be very different. And other schools in our system have been, at the time they were applicants, something that was very different and untested and not. When you think back, are there other things that we should be thinking about? Because we really need to vet. There's a lot of uncertainty. You didn't know 6 years ago COVID was coming, so we can't say, well, how would the application have looked different with that in mind? But this is incredibly difficult work that you guys are doing. So if that prompt helps with any kind of follow-up as we think into the future for future application cycles and how to make sure future applicants really come best prepared.
Yeah, that is a really great question. And when I think to sort of our peers, the other schools, for example, that were approved our year, I have like an immense amount of respect for each of those individuals and the different like ideas that they were bringing and continue to like bring to the city. So I don't envy the decisions and the difficult challenges that you all as board members kind of need to make and look for in new schools that are coming up, because I remember in our year as well, there were even many other sort of really exciting models. Yeah, I'll continue to kind of think and reflect on that. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, Chairwoman Pugh, did you want to add, kind of push, backing up on Board Member Cruzy's question about what it's like from a governance perspective and your reflections?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for that question. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, so I was thinking about kind of year 0 or year 1 to year 5 and how the board and governance has evolved during that time. The majority of board members were definitely supporters of the mission, supporters of the school. A lot of the board members were either parents that, were in a Montessori environment already and kind of knew that, okay, we didn't have this type of a model in a middle and high school, and really, really supported the opening of it. And we had a good number of board members that had a background in education. So as we've evolved, we made sure that we're in our recruiting efforts, we're looking for board members that have a finance background or a legal background. We've evolved in terms of We definitely, our structure with regard to, we have the finance committee, academic committee, development committee, and because of that, we have chairs of all those committees. They're kind of working as like a well-oiled machine. By the time, we're ready for our meetings, everyone has met and had their next steps from their previous meetings. And our role in terms of, I also sit on the governance committee. And so when I think about evolution, like I said, we started with, our focus was a lot on the opening of the school, enrollment, fundraising. Now, from a governance perspective, we're looking at making sure that the efforts of the schools aligns with the strategic plan. Our evaluation of the executive director is kind of more of we're putting more systems in place to ensure that we are that he's leading the school in a way that aligns with what we've kind of all signed up for. So we make sure that we're interviewing staff members, we're looking at the insight data, we're looking at the academic data to make sure all of that aligns when we're doing that evaluation of the executive director. So we're continuing to grow, we're continuing to learn, but with a vast difference from when we initially started. And like Justin said at the beginning, I was on the board. I'm a faculty member of the board, so I'm still here.
Thank you so much for your volunteer leadership. It's a lot of work, and we really appreciate hearing from kind of both the school operational and from the governance perspective, but your reflections here. And it's an important reminder as we mature in this next chapter, what roles, how we do need to continue to evolve and what the needs will be at all different levels. That's something we've learned as we've looked at LEAs over the last several years. When you hit 20 years, when you hit 25 years, systems need to evolve and adapt. So thank you very much.
No problem. Absolutely. Thank you. Moving from a founding board to what I call more of a sustainable board, right? And that next level board. Treasurer Stanley Beatty.
Yes, thank you, Chair Wright. Congratulations, Sojourner Truth team. I celebrate you for this milestone. It is a joy to hear of your progress and that you have fully met your charter goals in the face of all the challenges that we know all the LEAs face. You all are not only surviving, you are thriving. And so we celebrate you as a board. I do just have a couple questions for you, Mr. Lessick. I think it probably makes the most sense. You mentioned facilities being a challenge, and I completely understand that. Not only for LEAs, facilities are a challenge, period, right? Even for private organizations. I wanted to just ask you a couple questions. I understand you guys are at the tail end of a renovation project right now. Is that true?
We're kind of right in the thick of it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Correct.
And the projection is that you'll be done at it sometime in 2026. Talk to me about the project. Are you on
Sure.
track, on budget?
Sure. So yes, so we are still targeting and hoping for it to actually be ready for the first day of school. So I think that's August 25th, 25. So we are really pushing for this thing to be done in a little over 4 months from now. It's at 3420 16th Street Northeast. So it's a beautiful, beautiful old school and building, kind of a neighborhood fixture. And we are still pushing for that date. So, that is a major stressor now is, schedule and slide, and then we pull back and then it slides again. And we're doing our best on that. It is currently still in budget or on budget. And so we feel good about that as well. So we have a major loan that we were able to take out, really at this point, just like 5 months ago to close on it. So a 5-year term. Yeah. So yeah.
Keep going. I was gonna say you're reading. That's what I was getting to next. Okay, so you've got a pretty sizable loan.
Yeah. Two Aussie loans and then a loan through a group called the Equitable Facilities Fund. Yeah.
Tell me about that. Is that philanthropic money?
So there's no philanthropic money, but it's an organization that loans specifically at, relatively favorable rates. So we were at a rate of about 4 3/4. So we were able to get that as opposed to maybe 5 or 6 from like a local bank. So that was a major loan. We have 2 Aussie loans as well for 2 million apiece that are at 1%. So obviously the benefits of a loan from OSSI. And then we did use the larger loan. We have a DC bond, so we're getting financing through DC bonds as well. So we applied our loan towards the bonds.
Okay. And so with regards to the loan from Equitable Facilities, so that's going to balloon in 2030, right?
Yes, exactly.
So what's the plan for that in 2030?
So the plan is to do a refi. And when we sort of like budget things out, we're anticipating like a refi loan in 2029, like probably very late 2029, that would like take over all three of the loans at that point. The loans being like the two OSSI loans, and then also the Equitable Facilities Fund loan. And then when we're budgeting it out to sort of make sure that we're viable and in good health in the out years, we're right now assuming that that would be like a pretty long amortization, but at like a close to 6%.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you for mentioning the amortization. Yeah, you would want to push it as long as you can.
Yeah, we're using 35 as our placeholder. Yeah.
That makes sense. Let me ask you, so in terms of your budgeting, and I know it's 2030, and I know if you are thinking about it now, it sounds like you are, that's a good thing, right? Because
yeah, absolutely.
2030 will come. In your budgeting, do you sort of let me ask it this way, does your current enrollment sustain amortized payments of that total debt? Or is the idea that you have to experience some level of increase?
So we will. So we are just under 300 students right now.
Yes.
We are on target to go to 370 for next school year. And as far as sort of looking at our current registrations and enrollments and matches and things like that, we feel confident. You might remember, I don't know, it feels like forever ago, but probably 8 months or something ago, we were approved for the new space. And at that, when we were approved, we were also looking at the enrollment increase from 450, and we got like a 10 student increase to 460. When we actually do our budgeting in those like out years, we are anticipating being at like 455. So we're trying to be a little bit conservative. We can go up to 460 because that's our ceiling, but the long-term projections to meet our debt service coverage ratio, and again, to stay in a strong position, we try to be a little bit conservative, and who knows if we'll actually get to 460 in any given year. So we said 455, but it does assume growth to that point, up to 455 over the next 3 years.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that in your report that essentially your projection is to go from 291 in fiscal year 2025 to 455 in 2029. I saw that, and that's what begged the question, do you need to be there in order to sustain that level of debt?
Yeah, that's a great question. We would like to be there. We actually are able to back out of our current lease at 1800 Perry Street if we were to like need to. And so if in 2 or 3 years we do find ourselves struggling with enrollment, what we would inevitably do is sort of consolidate at the new site, which we would own, and then we would find some savings from a expense standpoint. We would minimize expenses by sort of backing out of our current lease.
Of the Perry Street lease. Great.
Yeah.
And I won't go too much in depth, but I'm assuming you can do that without major harm.
We can do that with notice. With 12 months notice, there's no penalty. Yeah.
Good. Very good. And then just one last question. The two facilities combined is how much square footage? I'm just curious.
Let's see. It's a nuanced question only because with the new facility, it's about 55,000 square feet, but we are only right now renovating about 35,000.
Okay.
And so down the road, there will be opportunity for more fundraising and to build out more. But I guess if we were to think about that 35 plus about 25 that we have now, we would be at about 60.
Okay. And with the ability to sort of lob off this Perry Street location if push comes to shove, and then you would consolidate, which may actually be better for you, right? Because you'd have
it could be, yes. Yeah.
Have efficiencies in that way.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for addressing those questions. I'm happy to hear that you're thinking about 2030. Like I said, it's gonna come. And I'm happy to hear that you are being realistic, and even I heard you use the word conservative in your projections, which I appreciate. And I encourage you to continue doing that. I mean, it's a pretty sizable amount of debt, but it sounds like you're being methodical and thoughtful about the way you are using your projections and sort of thinking about enrollment. So I can appreciate that. Chair Wright, I'm done with my questions, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chairman Salmon, and then followed by Secretary Adamafania.
I'm blown away. You've done something beautiful. You've accomplished something extraordinary. I hope each of you feels enormous pride and great personal gratification in what you've done. I don't have any questions. I'm just going to cast an enthusiastic vote aye to continue your charter. And thank you for what you've done.
I love it, Vice Chairman. Let me get to the vote first, but I'm just answering. That's very well deserved. Secretary Adamafania.
Thank you. Good evening, team. Congratulations. I echo the sentiment of my fellow board members, but again, as I hear you all talk about the work you've done, I know that you all feel a deep sense of pride too for what you've been able to build. So thank you. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your expertise and your commitment. I have one question, and this is actually regarding the out-of-school suspension rates. Throughout the review period, your school demonstrated rates significantly lower than sector averages for middle and high school grades around out-of-school suspension. Can you briefly just talk a little bit about the strategies that you're using to manage student behavior? And then I'll also add part B to that in terms of, well, no, let me stop there, if you can answer that.
So, and I anticipate the relationships coming up a lot, and just general focus on sort of wraparound services and supporting the whole child. But I will turn this one because of, a lot of the credit and expertise here would be with Principal Edwards and Assistant Principal Dr. Perkins.
Thank you. Absolutely. So we do value relationships. Each one of our students has a teacher mentor that they are with. I would say let me speak specifically for middle school. They're with probably the majority of the day. High school looks a little differently because they have to transition through their classes. So we've spent a great deal of time building those relationships. We have also partnered with School Talk and Restorative DC to have all of our teachers train in restorative practices. Students have also participated in some of their trainings. So before we suspend, we are going to, try, some conflict resolution, bringing everybody to, bring everybody to the table to have the opportunity to go through a restorative circle so voices can be heard, perspectives can be shared as a result of, mediating whatever the conflict may be versus out of school suspension, sending them home. And then what happens? Like they go home and then they return back to school. And what does that reentry experience look like? Whereas through this process, we are able to bring students together, of course, after, de-escalation, depending upon the situation, to have all parties involved and going through that restorative process. As Justin mentioned, we do have a wellness coach, we have a wellness counselor, we have social workers, we partner with communities and schools, and they have a site director who provides additional services. We have school counselors. Teachers also get involved. They're like, this is, this kid I have a relationship with. I want to be a part of this process. I'm happy to talk to the parent. And like they own that student. So, we try to do a lot in-house because again, like what lessons are they learning when you send them home? What are they doing and engaging with when they are at home, that if we know that they are with us, they can be engaged in reflection opportunities? What does accountability look like? And then a part of that reflection is that if I'm facing the situation again, what it is that I do. So also building the capacity of the student with various strategies and coping mechanisms in regards to their behavior.
And I know this is also like a personal passion for Dr. Perkins too, who has quite literally written a book about this sort of thing. Dr. P, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I was just going to say that, this is a lot is due to our robust student support team and talking to teachers and making sure that we have the right mindset. We know that the adolescent brain isn't fully developed. And as adults, it's about how do we respond to students? How do we respond to trauma? How do we respond to a lot of these behaviors that are on brand with just simply being an adolescent, de-escalation. So each teacher has, students. We have a mentor relationship with students where we know families, siblings, we know grandparents, so like this outreach of community, when we do respond to those situations that may warrant a suspension in other schools, we know this student so well that, hey, this behavior is off brand for the student. Let me give them a moment to cool off. Let me allow them to express themselves. And then we come back to the table and figure out what the next steps look like in order to restore the harm, restore the damage that may have been done, not only with a person that may have been harmed, but to the total community. So it is definitely hard work, but we're committed to this model, and it has definitely paid dividends over the past few years.
Oh, again, thank you for sharing your wisdom there, and to other schools that are listening, both aspiring and other schools who are already down this path. I just think that this is a wonderful example of what happens when folks who are committed, knowledgeable, and just committed to ensuring that young people get what they need, you could see outcomes like that. So kudos to you all. My last question is around the academic piece. It is, again, as some of my other colleagues have mentioned, it is not an easy feat to have met all of your charter goals. I mean, you think about everything that could possibly hit a school. You all saw it in 5 years, and who knows what the next 5 years will bring. But despite that, you all were able to hit all of your charter goals. Can you just share a little bit about the academic piece? It sounds like I have clear understanding of the school climate piece and how that's led to lower out-of-school suspension rates. But just curious about if you could share what you're most proud of academically in terms of your students and kind of what the future might hold for Truth.
Thank you for that question. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go.
Before, I want to actually add on to that, since you are talking about the academics. You do, though, have a difference between your high school performance and your middle school performance. So I don't want to mix that. And what can you do to make sure that your middle school performance is boosting your high school performance? So let's talk about the successes, but let's also talk about the gap that we are seeing too around the academics.
Yeah, and we're seeing a gap between our ELA and our math, which, is arguably a nationwide thing, but also I think we're seeing it acutely at Truth, maybe even more acutely than at a lot of places. And so that's been a major focus. This could be a good opportunity. Again, I'll pass to Principal Edwards, but I imagine, Director of Curriculum and Coaching, Miss Abondance, also has a lot of experience both at the classroom level at Truth and then now more recently in like the coaching and curriculum development role. And I'm sure she'll be able to add to the conversation as well.
First, I want to add, I know it's year 5, but I'm excited about the growth of the team because initially it was just me having to go in and observe all classrooms, which you already know that, anything can happen at a moment's notice and I'm not able to get into a classroom. So really excited that, we have a pretty thorough instructional leadership team where we are in classrooms every single day, providing feedback to teachers. The other piece is that we were all once classroom teachers, so you can also find us teaching a lesson if that's what's needed as well. So just being able to model expectations in terms of, just Montessori aligned practices. And then again, being able to just have the relationship with staff and students to ensure that rigor is taking place in all of the lessons being taught. We've also done a great job with laying the foundation of Montessori aligned practices. So our systems are running very, very smoothly, which allows for differentiation to happen, which allows for small group instruction. So students are able to get what it is that they need based on the levels in which they are. So again, not just because you're in sixth grade, you have to sit in the sixth grade lesson, but if you have mastered the sixth grade standard, you can sit in a seventh grade lesson, or you can sit in an eighth grade lesson based on the standards. So students, again, are getting what it is that they need based on how they are performing. But if you might be in the eighth grade and you might have to review a sixth or seventh grade standard, you might be pulled for that lesson just to reinforce those skills to allow you to be able to access the grade level content. We're excited about, just students experiencing success. We've had a lot of growth for MAP between the beginning of the year to the middle of the year. And so teachers are working very, very hard to ensure that, students are growing, again, not just for MAP's sake, but for their own personal sake. So, again, just laying the foundation so students can be able to experience success in the classroom. So I'll allow Gabby to also chime in.
Thank you. Yeah, I think just like Denise was saying, the fact that we have two teachers in every classroom really allows us to target that small group, like individual needs of students. I think, as Justin mentioned earlier, kind of in our first few years, we were really focusing on feedback related to the instructional model and making sure all of our systems were in place. I think especially just being in our third year of high school, we are at a place now, especially with high school, where those things are starting to flow and we can really transition all of our coaching and feedback to being more instructionally based and pushing, our high school to make sure that they are teaching with the same fidelity, high rigor as we are seeing in our middle school. I think another thing that's really exciting in response, to some of those gaps that we have seen between our middle school and high school is that next year we are going to have a full-time high school instructional coach and additionally a half-time instructional coach so that those teachers in particular can get even more support in our high school.
So I want to close this out by just thinking about moving forward. So you had a successful review period. I do want to note though, this also happened under transitional goals, right? And so you talked about a bit about it in the beginning, and again, whoever feels most appropriate to answer this, you are now going to be held to metrics under Aspire, new performance framework. How are you thinking about adjusting, if at all, or to meet the new bar that will be in front of you so that you can equally have a successful review period in 10 years, right, from now, because that will be the period in which you will be judged. So how are you thinking about that, given there is a definite rigor difference between our transitional goals policy, which we all know, and what Aspire is looking for?
And maybe I'll start us off by just thinking about, and I kind of alluded to it before, but like our need to truly familiarize ourselves, because like you said before, we've had some years where it's like, oh, you could do this, or if that doesn't work out, like this will count for you, and if that doesn't work out, if you just improved here, that'll work for you. And we know that's not going to be our next 5 years. So we know that we need to truly familiarize ourselves with Aspire. I think probably most of us on the call, certainly board members and certainly PCSB staff, are aware that like the middle school criteria are different than the high school criteria. So high school, much more focused on growth, which is great. High school, there's a lot of different measures. There's probably feels like 2 or 3 times as many different measures and factors that we're looking at. So kids on track for graduation, even like the conversation over the past few months of meetings has been around like chronic absenteeism versus truancy, and shifting from our eyes being on truancy to now what's happening, in the framework. Really, it's chronic absenteeism, and that's where a lot of our priority has been. So thinking about those things, thinking about staying true. I mean, Denise really beautifully led off the first question that kind of got kicked to her around like staying true to our mission. When we were choosing our like school specific measurement goals, we did not necessarily just go to like, oh, we've done well in this in the past, like let's just pick that for our school specific goal. We really went to like what is at the heart of what we're trying to do, and we went with most of those goals are related specifically to the performance of our students with disabilities, because we feel like our approach and our model and the small group experience that kids have, the very familial experience that kids have as they move through middle school and through high school, really lends itself and has been appealing to this point with families of students with disabilities. So we do serve around a 30% of our population have disabilities, and we want to do right by those students. So I think, again, bringing it back to our model, staying true to the Montessori philosophy and what has served us well up to this point, we're confident will continue to serve us well. And for those areas, of which there are many where we know we need to grow, drilling into those as well.
Yeah, I think I was strong, I mean, which we all are doing and all LEAs are doing, but really looking at making sure you understand, those differences and those nuances, like you said, as you balance, a very unique model, which there's room for you in that through Aspire, through your school specific measures and things like that to make sure you hold on to those things, but how you balance that under this new framework is going to be really important to sustain this great work that we've seen so far. Out of just really want to acknowledge what you've heard other board members say, like a really tough time to get started. We build in grace into our process for 5-year schools because we understand that you'll be ramping up. We did not build in grace for a national worldwide pandemic, in terms of that process, but we did through the COVID policies and transitional goals. But for you all to be here is really a big thing. So continue to keep your eye focused on that so that you can maintain what's important to your mission and continue to excel under the new framework. So again, just echoing what I've heard from my other board members, congratulations from being here. It is a pleasure for us to have this time with you this evening. We hope you will continue to share this joy with your school community. Make sure they know, because it's the scholars that did the work, right? Scholars and your teachers in the building that did the work. So with that, colleagues, I will now entertain them. Unless there's anything else, I will now entertain a motion. Board members?
I'll make the motion, Chair Wright. I move to continue the charter of Sojourner Truth Public Charter School.
Is there a second?
Second.
Secretary Adama-Fanian, can you please take a roll?
Chair Wright,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Sandman,
Aye.
Treasurer Stanley Beatty,
Aye, and congratulations.
Board Member Davis,
Aye.
Board Member Crucy,
Aye.
and I am an aye as well.
Congratulations, Sojourner Truth community. Very well deserved honor. We expect to see great things from you guys. Continue the hard work, continue the great work, and celebrate. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, Gina will introduce a proposal and recommendation for social justice public charter school. I'd also, while she's doing that, like to invite representatives from the school to provide remarks. Myron Long, Amber Ramos, Brandon Johnson, Tiara Seaton, Danielle Morris, Yenny Say, Joseph Spate, and Niels Ribeiro Yamofia. You all can accept the request to be promoted while that is happening, Gina.
Thank you, Chair Wright. Social Justice Public Charter School is up for its 5-year review. The school educates 97 students in grades 5 through 8 at a single campus located in Ward 5. In addition to adopting the PMF as its goals, Social Justice Public Charter School also adopted 2 mission-specific goals measuring students' annual participation in a student-led conference and a social justice learning expedition. DCPCSB staff assessed Social Justice Public Charter Schools charter goals performance using school year 22-23 and 23-24 goal attainment pathway performance as outlined in DCPCSB's charter goals policy and school year 22-23 and 23-24 mission-specific goal outcomes. Social Justice Public Charter School did not fully meet any goal attainment pathway in school year 22-23 or school year 23-24. In school year 22-23, Social Justice Public Charter School partially met the transitional goals pathway by improving performance in 2 of 4 transitional goals measures. Additionally, the school met 1 of 2 mission-specific goals that year. In school year 23-24, Social Justice Public Charter School did not meet a goal attainment pathway, failing to meet the targets or demonstrate progress in at least half of the measures in any applicable pathway. The school met both of its mission-specific goals that year. DCPCSB staff determined the school has not committed a material violation of law or of its charter. DCPCSB staff also determined that the school has not engaged in a pattern of non-adherence to generally accepted accounting principles, has not engaged in a pattern of fiscal mismanagement, and is economically viable. Based on these findings, DCPCSB staff recommends the board vote to continue Social Justice Public Charter Schools charter with 2 conditions. I will summarize them now, and you can read them in their entirety in the review report and accompanying proposal. First, Social Justice Public Charter School and DCPCSB must execute a charter agreement amendment that commits the school to the following. A, Social Justice Public Charter School must fully or substantially meet a charter goals policy pathway in this school year 24-25. If the school neither fully nor substantially meets a charter goals policy pathway in school year 24-25, then Social Justice Public Charter School agrees to relinquish its charter effective at the end of school year 25-26. Part B, provided Social Justice Public Charter School meets the academic expectations for school year 24-25, then Social Justice Public Charter School must fully meet a charter goals policy pathway in school year 25-26. If Social Justice Public Charter School does not fully meet a charter goals policy pathway in school year 25-26, then the school agrees to relinquish its charter effective at the end of school year 26-27. The second condition requires the school to inform its families of the first condition, ensuring families' awareness of the potential for school closure if Social Justice Public Charter School does not meet the academic expectations. If the school does not sign the required charter agreement amendment by May 26, 2025, DCPCSB staff recommends that the board vote to initiate revocation proceedings of Social Justice Public Charter School. Social Justice Public Charter School representatives are available to speak about the school's performance over the past 4 years and to answer the board's questions.
Thank you, Gina. Welcome, Social Justice team. Before you get started, Myron, if you can go ahead and introduce all of the people who are here with you, and then you guys can go ahead and begin with your opening statement.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here. So I'm Myron Long, founding executive director. We have Brandon Johnson, our founding principal. We have Danielle Morris, our director of student support service. We have Amber Ramos, our director of operations, and Tiara Seddon, our current principal. We're also joined tonight with 2, maybe 3 board members. Yenise, our co-treasurer, and Joseph Spate is a member of our school performance committee. And I think our board chair, Niels Wabero, will be here as well.
Thank you for being here, Social Justice team. So Myron, you all can go ahead and begin with your opening statement.
Thank you. First, I want to start with some extreme gratitude and good evening, by the way, or good night. We're deeply thankful that the universe called us to serve during one of the most challenging times in recent histories. Our families were drawn to our mission, and we were called to be a community school rooted in love, learning, and liberation. We didn't realize then,
but understand now.
Is that social justice school was forged out of fire.
We opened our doors in the middle of a global pandemic. We built a school community during a rise in gun violence in our neighborhood. And through it all, our families needed a safe space, not just for academic success, but for emotional and social well-being.
And we provided that. We created a community rooted in love and liberation where our students feel safe to grow, explore, and learn. We are proud of the work that we've done, but we also know that our journey is far from over.
So let's talk about our progress. Let's talk about what we've accomplished thus far. So in ELA, since 2022, proficiency rates have increased by 5 percentage points, keeping pace with growth across DC middle schools. 1 in 2 scholars is approaching proficiency, and 1 in 4 has met the bar. Our 7th and 8th graders have made consistent gains in their highest scores over the past 3 years. And in math, proficiency rates have grown by 6 percentage points. We know that we have work to do on our math proficiency rates, and we have so much work that we know that we're still going to do.
Beyond academics, we have made significant strides in student success and school climate. Chronic absenteeism has dropped by more than 10% thanks to our strong partnership with community-based organizations such as Preventative Measures and Paving the Way. Our suspension rates have declined 15% as a direct result of our work with Restorative DC and School Talk. And while we have consistently met our mission-specific goal, we will continue to be relentless in the pursuit of academic excellence. Because our promise was never to just some of our students, it was to all of them. We acknowledge that we have more to go.
So what are we going to do to make sure we deliver on this promise of learning in the classroom? I'm glad you asked. We've invested in our teachers and leaders, training them to use data effectively so that instruction is driven by real students' needs. We've redesigned our small group instruction to focus on grade level content instead of remediation because our scholars deserve to be challenged, not just to be caught up. We're using regular assessments and student reflections to track progress and make adjustments in real time. And we are aligning our curriculum to ensure that every student receives high quality, differentiated instruction. And lastly, we're exploring CTE skills through our LDL class on our social justice makerspace.
And beyond the classroom, to deliver the promise of learning, CREW remains a central component to our model, supporting students' social emotional growth, self-awareness, and identity building.
We've deepened family engagement through tools like Class Dojo and Power School, ensuring real-time communication on attendance, behavior, and academics, and mental health and wraparound support have expanded through in-house and community-based partnerships to meet student and family needs.
Addressing the economic barriers to deliver on the promise of liberation. We know that academic success is not just about what happens in school, it's about what's happening at home too. That's why we launched the first and only intergenerational guarantee income pilot called Two Guaranteed Together in partnership with the Mothers Outreach Network. By providing direct cash assistance to families, we're tackling financial hardship head on because when families have economic stability, students can focus on learning, not just survival. We are not done.
We are committed to creating a space where our scholar activists feel loved so that they can learn and create and design pathways for liberation.
And we're seeing real momentum. Our fall to winter MAP scores have exceeded our fall to winter MAP growth scores from last school year, and our in-seat attendance continues to rise. And while we are proud of this progress, we are not complacent or satisfied.
We welcome
accountability. We embrace the high expectations set before us, and we are committed to building a school that fully delivers on its promise to our families, to our students, and to this city. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, social justice team, for being here, for your opening statement. Congratulations for getting to this point. Again, no easy feat for sure. Want to open it up to the board. Vice Chairman Salmon.
Yes, welcome everyone. Thank you for being with us tonight. I have a question about your assessment, your honest assessment of your ability to meet the conditions that staff is recommending for the continuation of your charter. Do you think you can meet them? And if so, how are you going to do it?
We absolutely think that we can meet those goals. Our data is already suggesting that we're moving in an upward trajectory in all of the indicators connected to Aspire framework. And we've actually begun to do modeling through our partnership with 10 Square in order to make sure that we fully understand the Aspire framework and unpacking that data with our students and their families. I'll turn it over to Brandon, and he can talk a little bit more about specifically how we plan to do that.
So I do want to amplify something that Chantel said, and she talked a lot about if you really love the school, then get the people that are part of it and get them behind the things that you're trying to do. So as a preliminary effort, one of the first things that we did was just take time to make sure everybody understood what we need to do in order to stay open. And that means parents, that means staff, that means students, really sitting down and helping them unpack their data and be able to understand how their attendance on a day-to-day basis, in-seat attendance, chronic absenteeism, as well as their performance on DC CAPE assessment, but overall just their general performance impacts our ability to be able to love on them, to help them learn, and to be able to be in the space that like Tehran and Nasir and Miss McNeil talked about. So I do feel that we do have the capability to do it. Again, we've formed strategic partnerships. We've already revised some things in terms of our academic model. So we revised our intervention and support block. We completely dismantled it in some great ways to make sure that we can meet the needs. And so this is just some of the foundational work that we're going to do as we go into the summer and begin to prepare for some changes that we're going to make for the upcoming school year.
We're also humble enough to know that we need support. And so in addition to those partnerships that we have created with reputable organizations, we've also reached out to high-performing schools in our particular neighborhood and ward so we can learn those best practices because we have work to do and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We want to partner with schools who have results and who have allowed their students to get opportunities to grow and achieve in high levels.
Thank you.
I was going to say, Vice Chairman Salmon, do you have a follow-up to that, to their response?
I do not.
Board Member Davis?
Yes, my question is just about enrollment year to date. Are we in a better position today than we were last year? Can you just give us a quick update?
Yes, thank you for the question. We are in a better position. So currently we are at a 55% acceptance rate, and we are already at 93% to our enrollment target for this upcoming school year when it comes to verbally accepted. And we are also at 50% for fully enrolled as well. So we are already in an upward trajectory as well.
So what was the
Yeah.
no,
What was the
yeah,
last one?
She said 50% enrolled currently. So what was the percentage last year at this time?
At this time, we were at less than 25%. And I do want to flag that it was because this was around the time that we were transitioning out. We had already started to inform our families that we would no longer be at our previous facility. So they were already aware of the facility shift. There were some families that let us know that around that time they were not planning on moving to the different part of DC that we were planning on moving into. So that did cause a decrease in enrollment at that time last year.
I think we've also been really transparent in the flow of communication and data analysis with our Finance and Facilities Committee and our School Performance Committee. So I'll pass it to Yini, so maybe you can just talk about how the board engages us around enrollment and its impact on our finances as well.
Thank you for that, Myron, and good evening to everyone. Thank you for letting us speak. I wanted to share that I joined the board in July of 2024, so been here less than a year. Enrollment, as you can imagine, has been top of mind for the Facilities and Finance Committee, especially as there's high competition in Ward 5, and we absolutely acknowledge the citywide enrollment trends, which is concerning. Per pupil funding constitutes a majority of SJS's revenue, right? And so we have been relentlessly focused on enrollment since the fall of 2024. My co-treasurer, Joel Smith-Goring, and I have been implementing robust scenario planning exercise with school leadership to create contingency budgets. So basically, better than expected enrollment, staying flat on enrollment, or going down in enrollment. Basically, all the possible scenarios we have run through and encourage realistic numbers and projections.
And I do want to shout out the finance staff members at PCSB. We've been working consistently with Valeria and her team. We hear the feedback loud and proud in terms of like making sure that we have enrollment projections that are realistic, accurate, and aligned to our grade level, our grade to grade projections as well.
So following up on the enrollment question, so Amber, you said you're at 50% in terms of re-enroll. Like, what are you hearing from your families in terms of the re-enrollment process, and what are you doing to increase that rate? Right? Because some of that, if every year you get a new students, in addition, it's like a new school, right? So what are you doing to increase the retention, and what reasons are you hearing for families about whether or not what they're debating in terms of staying at social justice?
Thank you for the follow-up question. I would like to clarify that that's just fully enrolled, meaning we have paperwork on hand. If school were to start tomorrow, that's how many students would be eligible to start day one. In terms of fully verbally accepted, we have 75% of our students have already verbally accepted, and they have already confirmed that they will. So what we've done is we do have a pretty aggressive strategy where we're sending out physical packets, we're sending out weekly reminders, and we're also doing wellness calls quarterly. That's been something that's helped us up until this point to ensure that we would be at least within 75% of a re-enrollment rate, at least for verbally accepted. So we did start that very early on. We've been getting feedback from parents. We've been trying to proactively get in front of any issues or any facility concerns that parents have had. So that has helped us. I am very grateful to say that we are, as of Saturday, Enrollment Saturday was a great turnout for us. And we did end up at a total of 51 total students. So that puts us at exactly 77%. So we're already above the threshold that PCSB did project us to be for this upcoming school year. We were projected to be within a 50 to 65% re-enrollment rate, and we did go over that. So we are very grateful to see that our parents are committed just as much as we are to our mission, how we're running our school. And we are reviewing each case scenario of each student that has informed us, or a parent that has informed us that they don't plan on returning. We're being very we're communicating with the parent about what exactly are the barriers. The most frequent one has really been within incoming fifth graders, when parents are learning that we are going to be at the modular facility for a year, or eighth grade families when it comes to just having their scholars be in the modulars for an eighth grade year. So what we have done is we've encouraged parents to come in, see what the classrooms actually look like, see what the environment is looking like, so that they do feel comfortable with their scholars returning. And that has made a very positive impact in conjunction with the town hall meetings that they did on a grade level basis. So it's multiple practices. It's both enrollment, operations, and instructional staff. We're all working together to make sure that we're delivering the same messages. We are getting in front of any issues or facility concerns that parents are bringing up to us. So it's just been a matter of just communicating, over communicating, and giving our parents the time and space to express the issues that have come up.
Yeah, I just want to second the communication piece, because I think I love our parents. They are a different generation than some of us older citizens like myself. Like, I started teaching at 420 Alabama Avenue in the church, but some of our families, they're like, what do you mean you're gonna have school in the church? Does that mean there's gonna be like Catholicism? We're like, come see us, please. We got it. Come see us, come to the church, come to the mobile classrooms. And we also have been investing them in the process of the construction of our permanent facility as well, which I think will definitely help.
I did want to add one last thing. So part of our strategy was implementing an incentive strategy across all stakeholders, including our students, parents, staff, everyone, just to bring more joy around enrollment, re-enrollment. So that definitely has helped us. We're moving an upward trajectory too.
Thank you. Board Member Crucy.
Thank you for all of this. And congratulations for getting to this point. And as I mentioned when we spoke last with Sojourner Truth, I remember this moment 6 years ago. Brandon and Myron, your team had such great energy. And then my question is around reflection here on kind of unexpected caveat, like beyond COVID, lessons learned from the last 6 years. Among what had made your team stand out 6 years ago was that you had done these pop-ups. And so you had an idea of your model, and so that gave us what felt like a really credible indication of demand from parents who said, yes, this is the thing I experienced, and yes, this is the thing I want to sign up for. So now you don't look a day older, but you may feel 6 years older, maybe more than that, from all you've learned these last 5 years. Can you reflect on what was unexpected from those pop-ups to what you've lived through these last 5 years, if it's possible to say COVID aside. And then also based on this proposal that staff have put before us, and the question that Jim asked at the beginning here, can you anticipate some what you're going to need to learn here? And I know you've named some of it already, so all those caveats aside. And then I'd love to follow up for board members here. Thank you so much for all of your volunteer service here. I'd love to hear how you are thinking about adapting and evolving your board service from your benefit.
Yeah, I don't mind starting us off. So, something that I want to give a lot of just like time and attention to is, it's said multiple times, being a new school, one of the things that you're always thinking about, especially as you're entertaining new students, is the quality of your culture. From year 2 to year 3, we saw a huge spike, and we went to about 169 students at one point, and that completely like shifted the culture of our school. And when I think about like the pop-ups and the great academic components that were necessary in order to make sure we delivered on our mission, I think that there was a lack of understanding or depth of the cultural support that was going to have to go around that to make sure that we could support kids, to make sure that they could have access to all the academics that we wanted to put in front of them. And so in reflection, one of the things I wish I'd just taken a little bit more time to do, but again, I think we've course corrected pretty well in terms of our work with Restorative DC, but also like our solicitation of community supports and our hiring of some like phenomenal just admin and deans. I wish I had taken a little bit more time to think about some of the work that I could have done around the culture to just ensure that we had been able to hold on to some more of those students. We always say that culture eats instruction for breakfast. It's an old saying, old adage. And, I saw it like, when your culture is not strong, that's when you can lose kids really quickly. And so I think that we've done a lot of great work to improve it. But that's one of the things that I think I just didn't anticipate, but that I saw play out and affect like multiple areas of our academic and school experience.
I would also add that we, from a systems level in terms of like finance and operations, I think that we made systems for current enrollment, but didn't always make them for what our larger capacity could be. And so I think whenever you have that, that creates a potential for a gap because the system is built for like the current number of adults and the current number of students, when in reality, we've learned that like now that our systems are a little bit tighter operationally, is because we've built them as a way in which they could sustain us as we continue to grow.
And I'll just add in from the board perspective, this work is not easy, but neither was launching a single site middle school in the middle of the pandemic. And we've taken on difficult challenges before, and we're committed to doing so again. And the thing I want to emphasize specifically for this board is we're not guessing our way forward. Our board includes members who have worked in some of our region's largest and successful LEAs, as well as social impact leaders who know how to scale justice-driven organizations. So with that, plus our framework of love, learning, and liberation, we plan to meet the moment.
Hey, good evening. I would just add, as a board member and specifically on the academic performance team, just really engage in the conversations about what the data reflects, what the next steps are, what are the strategies, pushing and having conversations with school leaders in the actual meetings that we have every single month, and not just having or engaging amongst each other as a committee. It is truly us engaging all together with school leaders and the leadership team, and really coming up with some meaningful strategies about what we need to do to really ensure student success. So just wanted to add that piece to it.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Chair Wright.
Thank you. Secretary Adam Afania, and then Treasurer Stanley Beatty.
Thank you. Good evening, social justice team. Congratulations as well for getting to this point. You two have survived just about anything you could ever imagine over the last 6 years. So just wanted to extend a kudos to you all. The one question I do have is about your out of school suspension rates, and you started speaking to it with respect to the new partnerships that you all have forged with, I believe it is the DC Restorative.
Yep.
Okay, very good. And so would love to just kind of hear, and again, to Mr. Johnson's point, culture will eat academics all day, every day, forever. And so kind of understanding those two truths, would love to hear a little bit more about the relationship with you all and the DC Restorative Justice Project. What have you learned? What are you planning to apply in the future? And then just in general, as you move into the temporary space, how are you thinking about culture, and sort of continuing to build on the work that you've already done? And what are you concerned about in your honest assessment?
Yeah, so I would say I'm actually really thankful, like seeing I mean, we've had less than about 7 suspensions this year, so we've seen a drastic decrease in the number of suspensions. It's our best year yet in terms of just like our overall school culture. I would attribute it to like 4 things. So Restorative DC, we started that work in our second year, and really the focus wasn't so much on employing systems within the school, but more or less changing the mindsets of the people that are dealing with the students. And so that took about a year just to get everybody bought into like the restorative approach. Going into our second year, we then started to implement like restorative circles, healing circles, reentry circles when kids would, have to, I call it sit on the bench for a little bit. And so I think kids really start to they became bought into the process of expressing, talking about their feelings, talking about their missteps. But I also think that on top of that, it was an employing of what we call as like our crew, our advisory like structure, which allowed us to give them the social, emotional, proactive skills to like when they engage in those things to be able to respond in ways that were more healthy. So I think that with Restorative DC, they helped give us the foundation around what were restorative practices and how do we employ them and launch them in our community. But I would also say that the other things that really helped is we increased our mental health support. So Restorative DC attacked our tier 1, but when we saw like some of our tier 2, tier 3 kids that were coming with just more increased needs that were more likely to potentially be sat on the bench for a while, we knew that we had to get support to them quicker and more consistently. So we hired a full-time social worker. We hired a community-based, paving the way, also preventative measures who had also community support workers, and that we were able just to wrap our arms around more students. So those things really helped to ensure that we just had a better overall culture experience. And then our last thing that I would say is that we also got more after school programs. So we employed 2 mentoring programs, Oasis. We had E3, which was not necessarily mentoring, but they just really helped us wrap our arms around more kids and provide support where we wanted to. They were able to, and so we've seen the response in terms of just like an improvement in our overall school culture and a decrease in our out of school suspension rate, which we're really proud of. Our Principal T, she'll talk a little bit about the school year. We've now done school in both the church and in the modular. So we have we've done the work. So we know the things, and she'll talk a little bit about the experience over the course of this year.
Yeah, so for the past 5 years, we've really been kind of drilling down on this idea of love. And now we're getting into a space of like blurring the lines between love and accountability as well. And we understand that there is a world where kind of like that warm, strict tone is necessary. So really looking at ways in which we are holding students accountable for their behaviors, but as well as their academics, and really building that student ownership around how they're showing up and how they contribute to their communities as well. I think a bigger piece of it right now that we're really looking at and trying to evolve is that piece around family engagement. We can do all of the things while we're in school, but that means nothing if we don't have our families invested in that work as well. And understanding what that means for the longevity of not only their students, but the longevity of the school as well. One of the things I really appreciate that board chair Chantel would say is like, parents deserve to know. And that also means that they need to know what that means for the sustainability of the school and the part that they play in that. So we're really looking at how to kind of bridge that gap of making them an actual partner in that. And some of those measures require accountability. What does it mean when your students are not here? How does that impact them? But how does that impact our school as well in the longevity? So we have partnered with organizations like Flamboyant to really kind of enhance those aspects so that we can really start to streamline how we partner, what we're doing in the schools as well as at home.
Sorry, and I'll close with this. I just love a great story. Even today, a really powerful moment. I think this says a lot about our culture. So we had a student, they're new to us this year, but essentially the day before yesterday, going back to chronic absenteeism, like we saw them drop their siblings off and then like walk off. And so immediately we got on the phone, we called mom and we're like, hey, we just saw your child, leave the premises. And she like almost broke down crying, right? She was like, oh my gosh, like, thank you so much. Like, you guys care about me in the midst of all you have to do, and you're going to call me and let me know. And so today, when I met with her, she just was extremely gracious. And she was like, I already knew I was coming back to social justice next year, but this is why I want to send my other sibling, her younger siblings there. Like, you guys really just care. So I think that just really amplifies how, like, our culture focused on love, but also accountability. And like what we're doing is trending now in the right direction.
Got you. Thank you so much. Very, very helpful. My last question, then I'll turn it over to Chair Wright, is around the I believe the Mothers Program, is that correct? Okay. Would love to just kind of hear a little bit more about that, and again, how you're using that to support the building of a stronger culture for your young people.
Absolutely, I can speak to that. To your point, Board Member Cruzy, and this notion around doing a lot of pilots in our original years. And so we do a lot of what we call listening sessions and empathy interviews with our kids. And so we had a ton of empathy interviews with our kids around school poverty. And the design question was like, if you had a magic wand and money was not an issue, how might you decrease child poverty in DC? Because as you all know, DC has one of the highest child poverty rates, despite not being a state yet. And so our kids went through a bunch of different like ideas. And then they said that there was a simple yet profound answer, which is like, in order to prevent families from going above and under the poverty line, families need more cash. And we were like, actually, there's a lot of research that actually supports that. And so we had Councilman Parker come and talk to our students about the Child Tax Credit Act. And so that was the moment where it went from our students being able to advocate for our idea, and we talked to them about guaranteed income and its connection to Dr. Martin Luther King, which of course is a scholar activist. And they were able to kind of think and start to advocate for these ideas. Well, we didn't have any funding at that point, but we were able to connect with organization Mothers Outreach Network, who supported us in this process to build up this program. And there's twofold. It's one, to the point that I think Sean was making, and the expert that he talked to, when we think about barriers to academic success, it's either can't or won't. And some of those can'ts are always rooted in poverty in particularly. And so this was our opportunity to try to address the other factors that impact students as they continue to make progress. So we had a first pilot of 15 families. 100% of the families said they were able to meet their basic needs and also parent better as a result of the project. And we were able to expand that project to 30 students and 30 families for 18 months for this school year.
And what were the connections between not just, I mean, certainly that feedback is incredible, and kudos to you all for approaching this issue with creativity. What was the correlation between achievement, attendance, re-enrollment, even like what did you see?
Definitely. So the pilot in the summer, we did see a slight increase in attendance of the students who were in the program versus their non-peers. We're currently right now actually in a conversation with the University of Pennsylvania because they have a guaranteed income research center. And so they're going to think about how they can do that analysis for us to not only understand this notion around like agency and designing, but also what are the actual academic implications as well. So because this pilot is longer, it's 18 months, we'll feel like we'll have more data to be able to actually look at and analyze and compare in order to see the academic impact of that program.
But from your gut,
outside of the academic influence, the program has also garnered trust from parents, and so that is a really important component when we want to collaborate with families and reach out and say, hey, where are your students? Just knowing that we're team members in this work and in the community, it really has supported that student development as well.
Got you. And that's exciting as well, because I think that's a lot of learning that I'm sure other schools would be curious about. But I guess I'd love to kind of just hear from your rough assessment, not taking, I know it's not data, we don't have the numbers, I'm not holding nobody to it. But from your honest, just gut assessment, what are you seeing in terms of its impact on student achievement, your climate in the building, and overall just family engagement?
I think it goes back to this idea of like building up the whole child. Like, yes, academic is one aspect of it, but this is just another way for us to kind of really garner the trust and relationship with parents to recognize like, hey, we are here for you to build the development of your whole child, right? So when we're trying to kind of really look at these aspects of family engagement, this is just like one aspect that kind of gives us another bump up to say, okay, I have the trust with this school because they are doing aspects of it. So I think in that regard, like I actually am one that's really looking forward to seeing what that tangible data looks like in translation, but it just really helps us to kind of go on to that idea of love, learning, and liberation. Like they cannot happen, those things cannot happen in isolation, and they kind of all work together. So as we are building this aspect of family engagement, this is just one aspect that extends our hands to our family to say, hey, it's not just about their academic outcomes, but we truly are concerned about who they are as individuals. And these aspects are just an effort to make those, to bridge those gaps.
Great, thank you, Chair Wright.
So I know we're going to turn to Treasurer Beatty, and she's going to kind of pivot us a little bit to talk about the financial health of social justice. But before we do that, I want to make sure we stay on the academics. I appreciate the perspective and the thought about taking care of the family and thinking about the whole child. I mean, that is important in order for us to move. And you're a school. And the job is to educate children. And the absolute best, in my opinion, preventive measure against poverty is a powerful education, particularly for Black and brown children in this country. Get their brains stronger so they can be smarter, so they can go to college and they can do whatever they want. Right? We live in a world that still judges us by what we know. And what we serve a population that it doesn't matter we live in a world where if they don't know how to navigate and survive, it doesn't matter how good their soul is, right? Like, so you've got to do both. And right now you're struggling to do both. And why you exist is to educate. And so I need to hear and want to equally hear the amount of effort that you're putting into all of those other things to getting your academics correct, getting your academics strong, figuring out where your scholars are, moving them accordingly, and meeting the marks that allow you to stay open. You all know I've talked to you in person, I've talked to you in EOMs, I've talked to you individually. This is about making sure that children are able to be you, right? When I say that, and I used to say this to my staff all the time, all children want is the opportunity to be us. That means to have choice, to be educated, to be able to make decisions in their lives. And you do that because you had a level of education and opportunity that came to you. And right now, that's not what's happening in your school. And so I need to see that happening on a sustained level, on a regular place, or we need to make sure those children get into a place where that is happening for them. That is just the truth about why we exist. That is the autonomy we get in exchange for the accountability. It ain't pretty. People ain't gonna like me. Oh, well, she forgets she a school leader. All of that, that's all good. You run a school. We run a school with clear metrics for performance and outcome, and we have to meet those. And right now, you're not. And so I want to make sure that as you're thinking about particularly moving with Aspire, there is room for all those things that you think are important. That's one of the things I actually appreciate about Aspire, the school-specific measures, the fact that you get credit for it, and those things that make you important. And it begins to make sure that we're serving all students, right? And that we're tracking the growth and the performance of all students over time, not just those ones who are hitting proficiency. And right now you're struggling in both. So your focus has to be getting your academic program stronger, because that is the reason why schools exist. and you get your academic program stronger by the way you're doing some of this stuff, right? Like getting your families bought in, helping them understand every single move you're making, why it's so hard and why it's important. But I don't want to take our eye off the prize. And you've got some hard conditions in front of you, which means laser focus on academics. It means laser focused on what every child is doing in your building. Right now, you've got less than 100 students. You should be able to tell me right now where Nasir's grown. He's moved at Benjamin Banneker. Love Nasir, by the way. But where is Nasir Jr.? Where is Trayvon, right? Where is every single person? What do they need? And how are we making sure they get that every single day? That is the type of work that you need to be doing along with your mission and vision around changing the world. Because if you get their brains stronger, then they can get in places where they can make decisions and impact the change that you want to see in this world. And I want to say that because I now know our treasurer is going to take you down a different pathway, and I want to make sure you have that opportunity. Or Treasurer Beatty.
Thank you, Chair Wright. No, I appreciate that level set. What you said is a big part of what I'm thinking. I mean, I appreciate sort of the mission of the LEA, and I've appreciated hearing how they look at educating students. And Myron, you know, we came and visited you, and I learned quite a bit about your model, and I elevate all of that. At the same time, I was pleased that somebody from this team, and I think it was you, Ms. Sutton, that mentioned accountability. And so I want to just be realistic here. I mean, you all are sitting at a charter review, not fully meeting any of your charter goals, right? To be clear, and you're on the financial monitoring list. Okay, so let's frame that reality. And you're on the monitoring list because of declining enrollment and this uncertainty around sort of your next step as it relates to your facilities. And so before I ask questions as it relates to that, I want to, Chair Wright, if you'll allow me, I want to pose a question to staff. I want confirmation that this LEA either will or will not have to come back before the board for a facilities amendment prior to moving into the new space.
Thank you, Treasurer Stanley Beatty. As you might recall, the school was before us a couple of times for facilities action. And so I'm going to actually ask our general counsel just to explain what we have already approved and what might need to be approved. I believe, Jonah, that she will have to be promoted to be able to respond.
So in the interest of time while we're promoting Sarah, Carissa, is there another question that you have for the LEA and or its board around finding that we can move to just out of time?
Unrelated to the lease agreement. Thank you, Chair Wright. I did. So in the report, and I think I asked you this, Myron, when we met in person, and I'm not either, I didn't write the answer down or it didn't connect for me. I asked you about your private contributions. So there's a statement in the report that speaks to you all sort of being able to bridge this gap with declining enrollment in 2024 because of an increase in your private contributions. Talk to me about if that is going to continue. Do you anticipate that happening year over year? Because that's sort of how you were able to sustain yourself with declining enrollment in the past.
Thank you. Since we've operated, we've always had a very strong cash position. We've been fortunate to do some substantial amount of fundraising each year. I believe this year we raised close to about $650,000 to support general operating expenses, and some of them were restricted as well. And I think that we continue to have a strong relationship with many of our funders. And although none of the funding is guaranteed, we feel like we're in a position to be meeting the benchmarks that they ask of us in order to continue us with the partnership, especially some of the local and national education foundations as well. And at the same time, we also, of course, we really try to be thoughtful about our budget and contingency planning and making sure that in all of the staffing scenario models that we have, not only do we have like, mild, medium, and spicy enrollment, but we also look at that because of where we're facing in terms of like what might come with the federal revenue and the local revenue as well. We've already done those scenarios to make sure that we kind of have a really big picture and our board does have a really good picture of the potential outcome of some of these shifts that might change over the next couple of months.
Okay, so thank you for that, Myron. So I want to be clear. So going forward in your budgets, right? Let's take your next FY budget. In that budget, are you just as reliant upon private contributions as you were in 2024, for example? Is that your projection that you'll continue to get that level, and do you need it to be able to sustain?
We did decrease it just because we know that there were some uncertainties. And again, in the context of us having a very conservative outlook for our enrollment projections, it does always help our cash of hands. But because within this next year, our facilities cost is actually a little bit lower because we'll still be in the modular classrooms for one more year. So that will help us in terms of like our overall occupancy costs as we ramp up with the transition into the permanent facility.
Okay. Okay. And then there was a comment in the previous discussion about how you guys are doing with enrollment. And I heard you're at like 67% or 50% of enrollment or something. There was a number that you threw out there. I want it to be clear, but that's of your 97 enrollment count, right? You're talking about re-enrollment of your existing number. You're still less than 100 students.
We're less than 100 students on count day, but we actually enrolled 104 kids this school year.
Okay.
And Amber can clarify the numbers because it's a combination of re-enrollment and new students as well.
Yes, I'll separate the numbers. So for returning students, we are at 77% for re-enrollment. So that's, if you want the numbers, that's a total of 51 students that will be returning of a total of 66 since our graduating class would not be eligible to return. And then in terms of new students, we have a 55% acceptance rate, of which 15 have already been fully enrolled. So we're 93% to enrollment target of 88.
Of 88 students.
Correct.
Okay.
That's your target for this upcoming school year?
Yes.
So you plan to decrease enrollment? Because if you're at 104, why are you only going to be at 88?
That was as a result when we submitted our enrollment projections. So all of my numbers are based off of that, but we do have, like Myron was saying, we do have different versions of our enrollment projections. So while this is like our first milestone, we are aiming to at least be bare minimum at least 100, but we are working based off of that 88 enrollment projection that we landed with PCSB staff.
What are you using in your budget? What enrollment number are you using in your budget?
We plan to use the 88 student count.
Okay. When you say you plan to use, you have a budget right now, right? That projects forward. That's the 88 number.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Is there, Chair Wright, is staff prepared to answer the question?
Yes, our Sarah is here.
Okay.
Hi, Carissa Board. Yes, so to confirm, the school will need to come back to us in order to operate its new facility. They came before us twice last year, once in the summer and then again in the fall, first to have the charter amendment to approve their modular location. And then because of construction delays, they had to come back to us to request temporary approval to operate in a church location. In our approval of their modular programming, we actually specify in that proposal memo that our analysis is based on the modular proposal and not the long-term proposal. And our financial analysis actually indicates that we did not, we're not able at that time to assess the terms of the eventual planned long-term lease. So they will need to come back to us for an additional round of approval for that long-term lease.
Okay. Okay. That's helpful for me. I won't I won't go down that road because they do have to come back before us. What I will say, and I'll give it back to you, Chair Wright. I'm not quite sure I follow the conversation around enrollment. I'm not sure what that means in terms of moving into the new space, but I know we'll have an opportunity to discuss that when they come to us before us for the facilities amendment. I will end, if it hasn't already been made clear, I'll end by just saying I'm concerned about this LEA. Like I said, I am concerned that you're before us not fully meeting your charter goals and on the monitoring list for declining enrollment and sort of uncertainty around your next step. At less than 100 students, it's my understanding that the next step for you is a fairly large facility, which Myron, you and I have talked about, and whether or not that's sustainable for you and what a true business plan looks like for you in order to make that sustainable. I think that it will require you to operate in a little bit of a different capacity as it relates to being a landlord and, whatever else, a sublessor. And you're going to have to do that in addition to, as Chair Wright said, educate students, which right now is challenging for you. And so I am concerned. But again, I will stop here because we're not talking about the facilities amendment right now. So I'm done, Chair Wright.
Okay. Did anyone from social justice want to respond to that before we move on?
Yes, I just want to say that we are completely locked in to make sure that our mission becomes true for all of our students and families. We've started to do various different strategies that Brandon and Tiara talked about. We're starting to see that growth, and we're committed to making sure that it continues for not only the 25-26 school year, but 26-27. And while we need to focus on our academics, we also know that I think this is what you often say, Board Chair, right, is that we're an organization that is a school. And so we want to make sure that we continue to think about our finances and really do the due diligence work to make sure that our enrollment continues to grow and that, to your point, Treasurer Beatty, we have options for when we move into our new facility. I know we're not going into that deeper yet, and we can definitely continue to connect about that. But I believe that we have done our homework in terms of like the modeling and affordability analysis that's needed for that. And also within the lease, our attorneys have been able to negotiate some terms that will be favorable for us in order to mitigate some of that risk that it could potentially come up.
So before I would motion, I do have just a couple more questions that I want to make sure. When Vice Chairman Salmon opened, he asked about your readiness to meet the conditions. And I want to dig in a little deeper there. I hear you saying you're ready. How are you thinking about, particularly as Aspire rolls out, you move away from the traditional, the transitional goals, which have multiple pathways, to now having to meet this Aspire pathway. How are you thinking about, how are you planning about that? And then I'm more specifically, not necessarily because you shared some, I think, Brandon, around like how you're thinking about students and time, but how are you thinking about it in terms of sustaining your organization? And then what Niels, Joseph, and Yenny, like how are you all talking about it, thinking about it in terms of supporting the school from a board standpoint, like in terms of pressure testing, pushing, scenario planning, et cetera?
Yeah, so when it comes to the instructional side, one of the things that we did name is like, we're not just pulling from anywhere. We are looking at this data. We really have been building and strengthening our data literacy, right? So from fall to winter growth in MAP this year has exceeded the growth that we've seen from fall to winter from last year. The growth this year for math and ELA is at or above the 40th percentile as compared to last year where we were below, which would suggest that both our MGP and our GTP are going to be higher than as compared to last year. So I'm seeing some positive growth around all students. Some of the aspects in which we've already begun to implement this year and looking to further enhance, we've talked about this level about like our instructional improvements in the way in which we've redefined our small group instruction. So redesigning it based based on both the triangulating data of both math and DC CAPE to better align with students' performance, as well as making sure that they get a greater level of access to grade level content. And we've really taken on a school-wide approach in this. So when it comes to that, you can see teachers and leaders, including myself and Myron, doing some level of interventions with students at this all hands-on approach to make sure that we're really pushing the rigors and the supports that students need. We've also been looking at engaging students in that data understanding and ownership as well. So before, they may not have understood what this data means. They take the test, they understand I have to take the test, but what does this mean for me being able to build that ownership for myself? So also engaging students in that understanding of like how I'm performing, what do these numbers mean, and what can I do to be able to support myself so they can really begin to tap into that voice and agency around their ownership in the same way that we have built their capacity for social emotional learning. And building out the systems around those as well. One of the things that we're really proud of and really excited about is these strategic external partners that really allow us to enhance our systems. We are now moving away from like this startup mentality to really starting to strengthen our systems to make sure that there's a streamlined approach with that. So we've engaged in understanding like our ELA and our math curriculum, making sure that that rigor and that alignment is there. And we're really been evaluating, like, are these curriculums enough, and are they yielding what we need to make sure that we're making those adjustments?
Yeah, and I would just amplify this additional point. We actually really appreciate the Aspire framework because it gives us a clear through line from teacher to leader to board of just what bar we need to meet. And so we as an organization have actually spent a lot of time with the Aspire framework, not only understanding like where we break down in terms of points. We don't want to make it seem like it's a numbers game, but at the end of the day, like we are talking about like numbers, right? I'm a numbers guy, I'm a math person. So we're spending a lot of time with this Aspire framework, really understanding like where we left points on the board, where we can show improvement. We talked about chronic absenteeism is one of the things that was a big focus for us. We only got about maybe 1.5 or 1.8 points for that area. So that was something that was like low hanging fruit that we saw an opportunity to be able to tackle. We also saw that we had a large number of students that were at a level 3, but we know you really get points for your, you get point level 4 really matters, right? So how are we thinking about these strategic groupings? Not because we're just trying to move kids, but it's like honestly what we are trying to do is think about we need to show improvement, and the way that we're going to show improvement is by utilizing this framework to be able to showcase to you all that the decisions that we are making are having the impacts. The last thing I'll say, board member Spate, also trusted leader here in the district, he's been doing a lot of work with us, especially as the school performance committee, just taking time to make sure that we're having conversations throughout our organization, just thinking about like, are we continuing to steer the ship in the next direction? I don't know, board member Spade, if there's anything that you would like to say to add on to that, but I just really want to amplify, like, again, this is not guesswork. This is now as an organization, when we say that we're locked in, it's the bar is clear, the data is clear, the direction is clear, and now it's us as an organization making very intentional shifts aligned to make sure that we head in that direction. So I'll turn it in case you want to say anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Board chair, I think the biggest push is, yes, being able to have conversations monthly about what the data looks and sounds like when we're talking about Aspire, when we're talking about MAP, when we're talking about all the measures that they just named. But the push for us as the academic performance team is like, what does that look and sound like every single day? We can know all the data in the world, but what does that look like when your teachers, excuse me, are in the classroom, when your teachers are leading intervention, when they're leading acceleration? And when we're talking about scholar activists, we also want to build scholars that are able to articulate their data and actually name what needs to happen for them based on that data, right? And so like, it is that push of, yes, having the data in front of us, but also in return, okay, now that we have all this data, what does that look and sound like every single day so that we're pushing academic success? So that for us as the board, that's what we're pushing in these academic performance meetings. That's what we're having conversations with the leadership team about, so that it's not just us meeting to meet, but really, how does that translate back to your classrooms, back to your data, back to instruction, and back to the scholar activists that we serve every day?
And if I could add to board member Spate as well as Ms. Sutton, we're also doing that by building teacher capacity. So we've been able to increase teacher assessment literacy by involving teachers in the planning of this intervention, as well as having them be leaders in implementing the professional development and understanding what the tests are asking for, what the grade level tests are asking for. And so in that way, we're making sure that teachers have the data in front of them as well, and also trying to build and centralize our internal data systems. So we have like external partners that support our, internalization of data and our analysis of data, but we're also building internal structures to make sure teachers are looking at that data with us and are moving that data. How are we turning it, and what are we doing to plan with it?
Okay.
One thing I'd like to add, if you don't mind, Chair Wright, is I want to say that the Finance Committee absolutely supports academics. It's academics first, right? And Treasurer Stanley Beatty, right? Completely understand your perspective about both academics and financial. In a recent conversation with Myron, I literally said to him, look, in every financial position situation, you're going to have a trade-off. You're going to have a trade-off of A versus B, now versus later. Why, right? And what I named to him was, if nothing else, we have some really, really clear goals we have to achieve in the next 12 months, right? And so the trade-off decision has to be, what is it that's going to get us there and support us, right? So what is it that our kids need and what is it that our staff need to make sure that we are making the right trade-off decisions as far as finances are concerned? Because as far as I'm concerned, finance is there in order to support the real work, which is supporting our scholars and activists.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So thank you all for being here this evening. I do want to reiterate a couple of things to remind you all that you all, as a 5-year school, built into our system is what I term as a level of grace, which is we understand that the first 5 years of the school is a ramp-up year. It is a ramp-up years, right? We don't allow you to just open up all your grades, all capacity. So we know that you're growing your LEA up over time. And as a result, there is a ramp up period, and there's some grace that's given there in terms of a review. At the same time, when we have a LEA that during that ramp up time is actually, you think about ramp up, should be going up in terms of improving its systems, outcomes, and its result. When it's doing the opposite and going down year over year, that becomes concerning for us. But our precedent and our practice has been to continue to give grace to the school and let the 5-year review really be a roadmap for you. If you watch these meetings, which I know you have, I'm saying the same thing that I've said to all the schools. It is a roadmap. It's a roadmap for you, board, in terms of what you should be asking, the commitments that you make with this board in terms of the outcomes that you're going to hold staff to. And staff, it's a roadmap for you about the areas and the ways that you need to get better, whether you like it from the authorizer or not. It is the accountability that you get in exchange for all the autonomy we get. And I just, as a DC former school leader and a DC board member, want us to recognize that we truly do have a lot of autonomy. We really do, in terms of having an independent authorizer, but then also what we're given in terms of policies and procedures in terms of operating our schools. So when we're in a position where we have a LEA that we want to extend the grace to in terms of continuing, because you are ramping up, but we see the declines, that's where the conditions come from. And so one of the things that I know is that our sector only got better and improved when it was held to high expectation from the authorizer, backed by policies and practice that require higher achievement. We might not have liked it when PMF rolled out and what it did, but it made us get better. It was very clear about what it is that we had to do, and schools got better. And one of the things that I want particularly our new schools to do is use this as a roadmap, but know that every year is a critical year. Whether your authorizer gives you a conditions or not, having a school is indeed a privilege, and it comes in exchange for huge accountability. In this case, we have a school that has not fully met its charter goals at all, and outright not met the charter goals for at least 1 year, remembering that those were lower rigorous transitional goals. And then the conditions that are set for you this year, that are proposed by staff, require some action now, but I want to make sure you understand it is part of what happens is you've got multiple pathways to get there. And then one of the pathways under Aspire requires improvement. Improvement could be 1/10 of a point. That's not going to change the needle. That's not going to get the social activists that you say you want and that this model is set up to do. And so when we think about change, we need to make sure that being continued is underwritten by a process that's going to ensure change is sustained for multiple years of the next time that you come for me. I do not believe that 2 years is sufficient for sustained change, especially given with this year's condition. You still have the liberal option of substantially meeting a goal or improvement. So in addition to being consistent for all schools, and in order to ensure the highest quality over time, I am actually going to move that we continue your school with the conditions proposed by staff with the following amendment. That condition 1 is extended for a 3rd year by adding a part 1C that requires the school to earn a level 3 or higher on Aspire in school year 26 or 27, or else relinquish its charter at the end of the 27-28 year. And that condition 2 is correspondingly extended to require the school to notify families of your conditions 1A, 1B, and 1C. So that is my motion and movement, board. I want to open it up for discussion.
I second the motion.
Is there any other discussion before we vote?
Chair Wright, I just wanted to say, I appreciate your amendment. My vote is not reflective of what you have amended. My vote is reflective of my sentiment regarding the LEA in general. So, but I appreciate your amendment.
Secretary Adama-Fania, can you please call roll?
Thank you. Chairwoman Wright.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Sandman.
Aye.
Treasurer Stanley Beatty.
I vote no on the continuance.
Board Member Davis.
Aye.
Board Member Crucy.
Aye.
And I am an aye.
All right, so the motion passes. Social justice, I want you to hear this. Your charter has been continued. You do have now 3 years of conditions, one of which is this year, and then 2 school years after. If you continue on the path that you just shared with us, your focus on your data, your focus on your academics, your focus on your families and moving, you should be able to meet this bar. Thank you for being here this evening, and we look forward to year-over-year progress, sustained growth of this LEA, and that when you come up for your then 10-year review, it is a clean continuance to continue doing what you believe you've been called to do. So thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you all.
Thank you for your time.
This concludes the charter reviews for tonight. Thank you, Gina, for joining us this evening and for your continued hard work throughout the review season, your team, and everyone within the school performance department. Is there any new business? Seeing none, colleagues, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn. I know you all would like to leave after 2 nights of back-to-back meetings. I'm not sure what's happening to the board.
I move to adjourn the April 29th, 2025 board meeting.
I'll second.
All right, Secretary Adama-Fania, can you call roll, please?
Chairwoman Wright.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Sandman.
Aye.
Treasurer Stanley Beatty.
Aye.
Board Member Davis.
Aye.
I thought you abstained. Okay. Board Member Crucy.
Aye.
And I am a very sleepy yet enthusiastic aye.
So board members, I do also want to thank you. I do want to thank you and staff for the back-to-back board meetings. This is also no easy feat. We are not getting paid to do this. And staff, you are getting paid, but not getting paid this long and this much. So I do just want to acknowledge that this has been a long month. This is literally 3 meetings in 1 month. So thank you for your dedication. Thank you for your focus. And thank you for your commitment to the children and families of DC. Appreciate being part of it.
Chair Wright.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Good night.